Good evening, everybody. Members of the public are advised the meeting will be recorded and an audio recording of the meeting will be made publicly available on Council's website. I'd also like to welcome everyone listening at home and acknowledge our verbal submitters waiting in the virtual gallery to be heard by the committee on their nominated item. I'll be announcing the order of speakers prior to each item. Nillumbik Shire Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri people who are the traditional custodians of this land. We would also like to pay respects to their elders, both past and present, and extend that respect to other Indigenous Australians present. We have no apologies tonight. Could I have a mover for the confirmation of the minutes of the FNC meeting held on Tuesday, the 9th of June 2020? Councillor Perkins, seconded Councillor Clark. All those in favour? And that is carried. Thank you, councillors. Our first item tonight is FN 01720, the submissions received for the draft Health and Major Activity Centre structure plan. I'll read out the list of names first so that people know the order in which they're speaking. Number 1, Carlotta Quinlan on behalf of Eltham Community Action Group. Number 2, Natalie Duffy. 3, Jim Connors on behalf of the Eltham District Historical Society. Number 4, Jim Connor. Number 5, Lindsay Pranotto. Number 6, Anthony Dennehy. Number 7, Howard Turner. Number 8, Marie-Claire Desfontaine, who is a late request. Number 9, Betty Russell via the CEO. And number 10, Eltham Chamber of Commerce and Industry, also via the CEO. So first off, we'll start off with Carlotta Quinlan. Welcome, Carlotta. Won't be a moment, we're just letting her into the chamber. Hi, Carlotta, we can see you. We just now need to see your face and unmute yourself, please. Carlotta, there's a little red microphone on the bottom left hand, and if you click on that, that will unmute you. Or alternatively, just move your mouse to the top right-hand corner and you'll see the word mute or unmute and just click on that. We'll go on to the next speaker, Natalie Duffy, if you're ready, and then we'll come back to Carlotta. She obviously has some technical difficulties. The never-ending challenges of holding virtual meetings. Natalie there? Won't be a moment, everybody. Welcome, Natalie. If you could unmute yourself and show us your face, that would be lovely.
Great, thank you.
Hi, welcome.
Thanks, Karen. That was I couldn't find the spot to be able to do that, so.
That's all right. Fire away.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight about the plan for the Eltham Activity Centre. You know, putting my thoughts into 3 minutes might be a challenge. I think this is a really important decision for council to get right. You know, I love where we live and I want to see things that we value in Nillumbik protected and enhanced. But what I really want is council to listen to the people who choose to live and work here and to partner with us to create something that's better, not worse than what we already have. I've got big concerns with this draft plan, and I think that if this plan is implemented, it will underpin, you know, the next 10 years of development in Eltham, and it will set the course for the years that follow. You know, it'll be, what do we want Eltham to look like in 50 years' time and in 100 years' time, and that depends on what we do today. But also getting it right so that we can enjoy where we live and make the most of it is important, and I can see what you're trying to achieve with that, with connections and improvements. So there's a lot of good things in the plan. But why I'm saying that this is too important to rush is that, you know, you're asking us to accept these changes, and I don't think there's adequate time that the community's been given to really consider the impacts of what you're putting forward. You know, and that's clear that there are only, you know, you've received feedback from 36 submitters on this draft plan, and I don't think that that's a sufficient basis from which council can vote to accept this plan. This not, we've seen this many times before with the reserves, with other big important things that you've wanted to vote on, where the community said, hey, I don't know what you're doing here. So, you know, I don't think feedback from 36 submitters is a sufficient basis from which council can vote to accept this plan. And it cannot be considered adequate community consultation. You know, I oppose this plan, and I'm resolute that the community on the whole doesn't support it either. You know, I've called a number of my friends today, local friends, to ask them if they knew of this plan and did they support it, and were they one of the people to put a submission in. They all said no. They didn't know what you were doing and they don't support it. And, you know, I just ask that you don't accept this plan until the community has been sufficiently informed of what you're trying to propose and a majority of residents agree with it. I put a lot of, I put information and details into my submission, and I know I won't have time to go through all of that today. But, you know, I grew up in country New South Wales. I've lived in rural townships. I've lived in the big cities of Sydney and Brisbane and Melbourne. And, you know, I've chosen Nillumbik with my family as the place to live in after being in Caulfield North and Fitzroy and other places. You know, here in Nillumbik, we've got country charm and a city connection. We've got the best of both worlds. And this plan puts all of that at risk. You know, it's full of words and objectives, but it doesn't leave me feeling that what makes Eltham unique is being protected or enhanced. You know, we deliberately chose to come and live here with my baby, and I've had a subsequent baby since then, you know, back in 2008. And, you know, we came here for the freedom of the trees, the sounds of nature and the niche shops, and to be connected to community. You know, we didn't want to continue living in inner city apartments. No.
Thank you, Natalie. I'm sorry, but your time's up. But don't go anywhere. I'm sure some of the councillors may have questions. Councillors? Peter Clark? Unmute yourself, Councillor Clark.
Sorry, I thought I had. Natalie, could you just give me a couple of points? Firstly, what you would see is the greatest weakness in the document, and secondly, what you see is its greatest strength.
Well, I think the greatest weakness in the document is, you know, having an activity centre that is, you know, dominated by, you know, 4- and 5-storey buildings. This core commercial area doesn't, with 4- and 5-storey buildings, it won't reflect the character of Eltham, and it'll obscure the much loved treed views that we have. That's one of the main points for me, you know, and that kind of then extends right across to the train line and the redevelopment of the train station. You know, from where we are, when we wander through Eltham, when we drive through it, when we shop, it's the space that I enjoy. It's the trees, and so many other people say that too. You know, how do you see the beauty of the nature that we live here for when you're trying to navigate your way through a channel of 4- and 5-storey buildings? You know, I see that, and I lament this when I go through Doncaster. The trees reduce my stress. The open space reduces my stress. Every time I drive along Williamson's Road near Doncaster Shopping Town, I just lament that the once glorious view to the Melbourne city skyline is now hidden by residential towers in all but one address. Now, this is a concern that I've got for Eltham as well.
And your greatest support in the document?
Well, I'm supporting that you're coming out to the community and asking us to provide some feedback. I think that that's great, but I really want us to be able to have enough time to really understand what's being put forward, because there's so much. You're talking about, 11 and 12 precincts. They're all very different, and, they all work together to either make or break where we live with congestion and traffic and living. So when it comes to the strengths of the document, you've got some great strategies and objectives. So, you want to have improved canopy landscaping to soften hard edges of industrial built qualities when you're talking about the industrial area. But in the document, you've got, there's no provision for tree planting, or there's no protection of trees. In other parts of the document, I'm just going back to some of my particular notes. You're talking about, you want to encourage buildings that present a cohesive appearance which relate to the current modest scale of the precinct. Yet, a 5-storey building is not modest, and it's not in character with what we've got at the moment. Thinking the other thing,
Natalie, can I just ask you then, are you suggesting that the current activity plan, not this document, but the one that exists, which has got the 4 and 5-storey buildings, which was done some years ago, was wrong as well, so that you really want to start again, and you're rejecting the previous plan that was in place as well?
Well, this is, Peter, part of the problem about community and being engaged with council. I didn't know about the previous plan, and it wasn't on my radar. I'm aware of this one quite by accident. I don't make looking at the Nillumbik website, the thing that I do all the time. I've become more accustomed to council and the opportunity to provide feedback because of the things that have come up in the last couple of years. I was concerned about the reserves, so I fought to save them. I'm concerned.
All right, well, we're straying a little bit away from Councillor Clark's
I suppose so.
question.
Getting back, I'm not rejecting the old plan, but with this plan, I think, as a new...
The point is, the old plan is the same as the new plan in terms of heights. There's very few changes in heights in this plan.
All right, there's no question there. I think we'll go to Councillor Jamerick. He had his hand up next.
Natalie, just briefly, what are the things that you would like to put into the plan from your submission? Like the 2 or 3 key things that you think that should go into it that aren't in there?
Well, I really think that we, at the beginning... Briefly, the beginning of the plan acknowledges Wurundjeri, and I think that that's fabulous. But I don't see anything in the rest of the plan that's putting forward ways, whether it's community art, whether it's open spaces, to be able to have acknowledgements to Wurundjeri in our main township of Eltham. I would love to see that. I think that's really important. I would like to see more about landscaping. It's great that the transport components have been included, and, spaces to be able to ride bikes, etc. But, I'm wondering, well, where does that come from? Because when I look at the map, I can't see where there's going to be provision for bike lanes without taking away some of the centre median strip trees that we've got. So I suppose I'm just wanting to see more about landscaping and more about protecting the things that we really enjoy about living in Nillumbik. And I'm not kind of being able to articulate that very well, but, I don't want it to be congested. I want it to be somewhere that I can continue to enjoy and not feel stressed, rather than going through the town as it changes and thinking, oh, gee, I regret that happened. I'm sorry I didn't speak up about that. So it's about...
Thanks, Natalie. Do you want to answer the other part of Councillor Jamerick's question?
Sorry, what was that?
The second part.
If you could remind me.
Councillor Jamerick, would you like to repeat the second part of the question?
Just the 3 or 4 things that you would like to see included into the document.
I would like there to be more protection for the green vegetation. The development, I'm not opposed to apartment development, but I'd like to make sure that there's adequate landscaping. And in this plan, some of the wording says the possibility of protecting things. It doesn't say that, they definitely will. And I'd like there to be more Indigenous plantings rather than it being open to exotic plantings.
All right, thank you, Natalie. Councillor Perkins would like to ask you a question as well.
Hi, Bruce. Thank you.
Hi, Natalie. Thanks very much for submitting in your ongoing efforts.
Oh, sorry, Peter. Sorry. Yeah, hi.
Yeah, hi. Just in terms of your lack of community consultation, and you know, does that sort of speak to the current issue with ongoing lockdowns and the pandemic, that you think the community's found it more difficult to adequately be consulted on this plan?
No, I don't think it's to do with the pandemic. I know that you extended the consultation time because you recognise this is important. Normally you have consultation for 4 weeks, and this was put out to 7 weeks. I didn't find out about this early on. It was towards the end. But I do think that something like this requires council to let people know about it. So if I can call 10 friends this afternoon to say, hey, did you know? And they say, I had no idea. Then I think that goes to show that the way you consult needs to be looked at, so that when you're forming decisions, you can make decisions knowing that you do have a true reflection of what the community feels about this. So
Thank you, Natalie. Any other questions, Councillor Perkins?
No, were you cut off there, Natalie? You were sort of halfway through your answer.
Oh, yeah, I was kind
I
of...
think it's been answered. She
Oh, well, she was
obviously
still-
feels like there's been, it's
she was
not
still-
COVID, and
she was
she
still
would have
speaking.
liked more.
Please,
One last point.
please.
So people come into Eltham through the road, and they come in through the rail. And along the rail link, one of the things that I love about coming home is all of the trees. It's a way of being able to feel like I'm coming into Eltham, and you know, it's representative of my community. You know, part of this plan is looking at the areas down around Bunnings, and there's you know, I don't know about the old plan, but you know, this current plan is looking at, you know, 4-story development around there in that industrial and emergent area, 3-story development as well. So I have concerns there about, you know, even coming in along the train, I don't want to see the backs of tall buildings when there could be a provision to say, in front of those, let's make sure that it's landscaped so that we've got green. Let's consider the residents that live on the hill that look down at the railway line at what they're going to be looking at, because we don't want to be living in a big built up area.
I think councillors have got your gist up, Natalie, and you've had a long time. I think
Thank you,
might be
Karen.
more questions. Councillor Rankin.
Thank you, Mayor. Natalie, thank you for your submission and ongoing support with council. I think it's tremendous what you do. One question that I do have, we went from 4 weeks to 7 weeks, and you're talking that the community hasn't been given enough time of consultation. In a short answer, how long do you think is really a suitable period for consultation?
I suppose it depends on what the issue is. Like, this is a really big one, Bruce. And, you know, I applaud council for looking at it to actually, you know, look at the future and look at how can we make things better for the future. I think a period of 4 weeks is not enough. I think a period of 7 weeks is not enough if the bulk of people don't know about it. So 36 submissions when Eltham has got a population of about, I don't know, you know, I don't know if it's 18,000 or 20,000, shows me that that's not a lot of people. So
how long, let me get back to the question, how long do you think would be an appropriate time?
Well, it's you know, I would, for something like this, I would think maybe 2 months, but it's not just, it's the how you do it as well. It's like letting people know, do you email us? You know, how do you access people to say, this is something that we're doing, we're building the future, we want you to be...
So it's how are we communicating then? It's not a fact of the time period per se, it's how we're communicating with the community. Is that
Yeah, I think it's both. I think
so,
at the moment,
I mean,
it's
7
both.
of us sitting around here tonight, and we are the ward councillors within the community. Everybody knows how to get in touch with us. So that's a really good way. But I take your point that maybe we need to look at how we're broadcasting it out better.
Thank you, Natalie.
One of the things that you asked then, you said as the ward councillor, people can get in touch with you.
Yeah.
We want to get in touch with our ward councillors over little things or big things that become a problem. It's like if council can just make it easy for everybody through the process rather than having to contact the ward councillor over
So I get your point. Yep,
that
thank you.
is about making it life easy. I think at the moment we're all feeling exhausted because we've had so many things hit upon us.
Okay, so short answer is what I was looking for. Thank you, Natalie.
Yeah.
What I did get out of it was the fact that our communication style out to the community could be improved.
Absolutely.
So one last comment that I do
Thank
have.
you, Natalie.
Sorry?
Thank you, Natalie. And is there a question there, Councillor Rankin?
One last comment. Have you read the previous document?
No, I haven't.
So the previous document was developed back in 2008 by the then, when we still had the...
I think perhaps, Councillor Rankin, we've got many people waiting to speak. Unless you have a question, I'm quite happy to have Natalie provided with a copy of the previous document so she can compare and see that the roof heights haven't changed, and that might allay some of her fears.
2008 was a long time ago. 2008 was before I even got in council. I got on in 2010.
It hasn't
So
changed.
that's
we will say goodbye
me.
to Natalie and move
Thank
back
you.
to Carlotta Quinlan. Thanks again, Natalie. Thank you, Carlotta. So you're unmuted now. If you could show us your face, that would be great. No, you've muted yourself.
Hey, well.
Fantastic. Are you there, Carlotta? Hello, Carlotta? Perhaps turn your volume up. Can you hear me, Carlotta? Is Jim in the waiting room? We might move on to Jim Connor, who's in the waiting room ready. Welcome, Jim. If you could unmute yourself, that would be great. And show us your face. So, Jim, you're speaking on behalf of the Eltham District Historical Society first, and then for yourself. You have 3 minutes for each section. Welcome. Can you hear me? Welcome, Jim.
I can.
Great.
I can.
Fantastic. I know you've got some NBN issues. I was advised of that today, so you're doing well. So,
Thankfully, they appear to have been resolved, so we're back online, which is
so
great.
you have 3 minutes for each speaking item, and then councillors can ask you some questions. And if councillors could just stick to questions and not statements, and if you, Jim, could just answer the questions and not make statements, that would be appreciated. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, councillors. I'm speaking on behalf of the Eltham District Historical Society, and our interests relate to any or all of the properties within the study area that have heritage overlays or are of historical importance to the local history of Eltham. In particular, I'll talk about the Trestle Bridge, the Shilling Law trees, and also the adjacent war memorial buildings. We encourage council to ensure that any future works in the vicinity of the Trestle Bridge do not compromise the historical significance of this iconic structure, which is highly valued by our local community. The bridge is historically, scientifically, aesthetically and socially significant at a state level, and the current heritage overlay covers the railway bridge and the surrounding site to a radius of 100 metres. This is often forgotten, a radius of 100 metres, and considers the bridge to be historically and technically significant to the Shire of Nillumbik as well. In respect to the Shilling Law trees, the Italian cypress trees at 895 Main Road, we maintain an interest in the former Shire office site for its historic connection to the Shilling Law cottage, which was on the site previously. The 3 Mediterranean cypress trees originally were part of the garden of Shilling Law cottage, which occupied the site prior to the construction of the Eltham Shire offices in the 1960s. We consider the 3 trees which are well over 100 years old, are of local heritage significance. And these trees represent a navigational beacon between the past, present and future landscape and history of the district, and are covered by a heritage overlay. In respect to the war memorial buildings, we maintain a strong interest in this site as a living memorial established from funds raised from within the community by public subscription. Our society is of the firm opinion that the original 3 Eltham War Memorial complex of buildings, including the entrance gates, should not be sold nor demolished. The site should remain in community ownership. The Cultural Heritage Significance Assessment undertaken in 2011 for Nillumbik Shire Council states the War Memorial Building Complex at 903-907 Main Road, Eltham is historically, aesthetically and socially significant to the Shire of Eltham. Our society therefore asks Nillumbik Shire Council to respect and value each historically significant built property within the study area for the Eltham Activity Centre Draft Structure Design Plan. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Jim. Councillor Perkins, first question.
G'day, Jim. Thanks for the submission. Do you know if the Nillumbik, if the Historical Society has a view on a proposal to put a community hospital around that site?
We haven't had the opportunity to consider that, but once there is some facts available around that, we'd be happy to have a look at that and provide an advice. As I mentioned, we value that site as a former Shire Office site, but mainly as a former Shillinglaw farm, and those trees on that site are significant.
Thank you.
Any other questions from other councillors? Councillor Clark.
Jim, firstly, my question is, are you aware that this document proposes no changes to the current activity centre plan with respect to any of the three matters that you raise? And second, my question is, are there any matters of historic nature listed in this document which cause you any concern?
Thank you, Councillor Clark. As we all well know, there have been a number of considerations in recent years about the combined site of the former Shire Office site and the War Memorial Building site. And a number of those involved, it would appear, removal of those buildings. The former structure plan, which I have in front of me, actually also talks about protection of those sites as well. But that did not stop this council and the previous council looking at changes to those sites. So whilst there is a lot of information in the structure plans, and I've got documents in front of me going back to into the 1980s, it indicates that it's fine to have these items within plans, but unless council actually commit to following them, it does really undermine the value of some of those documents. And the second question, Councillor Clark?
My second question is there anything in this document that is of concern in a heritage context? Because all of the issues you've raised thus far simply reiterate what was in the current plan and existing plan, which respects all of the heritage issues. I'm just trying to find, if you've identified, I haven't, anything that you believe is in any way contrary to any other heritage issues with respect to the activity centre zone.
There's no specific things, but as I've indicated, we know that whilst in the former plan and in this plan there are reference to some of these sites, it's important that council actually follows them and recognises the historic value of those. And Councillor Perkins mentioned about the possibility of a community hospital. Well, that would be something that we would take to our committee, and then we would provide a view on that as well.
Thank
So
you, Jim.
I take it, I'm just trying to get a clear answer. I take it you've not identified anything else in this document which is a heritage concern.
Nothing more than what has been in the previous one, and that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other councillors have questions for Jim regarding the Historical Society? If not, Jim, you can move into your personal submission.
Thank you, councillors. This is my personal submission and not on behalf of any organisation. Having been through a number of iterations of the Shire Office redevelopment proposals or strategic plans going back to the 1980s, there has been a repetition of many items. Many of those haven't been implemented. So it's important that I think we recognise that Eltham is different in so many ways, and any structure plan needs to responsibly reflect the wishes, aspirations, expectations, and the history of those who choose to live and work here. Eltham is not like other metropolitan activity centres. It does not and should not have the development scale of other activity centres. We're not talking about Doncaster here, we're talking about Eltham. It has a rare and distinctive style where the natural environment built form interweave. Future strategic approaches need to actively support this style and not attempt to produce a high density commercial and residential development model, as I feel parts of this draft structure plan are focused on. Buildings need to complement the natural landscape instead of overwhelming it. And my concern is where we're talking about possible 5-storey buildings. I don't support discretions for development to exceed maximum building heights. And I really encourage architecture that is designed to be sympathetic to the landscape and the artistic heritage of Eltham. As mentioned on page 22 of the draft structure plan, it has a stated intention to create a lively and people-based centre with civic and community spaces that enhance community interaction and general health and well-being, accommodating a wide variety of community functions, including the display of community art and artefacts which reflect the artistic and cultural aspirations of the community. I totally support that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Councillor Ashton, were you putting your hand up? No? Any other councillors wish to ask Jim a question on his personal submission? If not, thank you very much, Jim.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
As usual, we welcome your input.
Thank you.
So we'll try Carlotta once more. Perhaps you could help Carlotta via the phone, Jim. Right, we've got her on screen. No, we haven't. Hi, Carlotta, you're unmuted. Can you hear me?
She's not unmuted.
She was for a second.
Aha.
Can you hear me, Carlotta? Hello? Now we'll go on to Lindsay Pranotto. Carlotta's obviously having some technical issues. Welcome, Lindsay. You're our next submitter or speaker on submissions. You have 3 minutes and then councillors may ask you some questions. If you could unmute yourself, please. Welcome. And I know we've got, hi, Lindsay.
Good evening. Good evening, councillors.
So you have 3 minutes and then councillors may ask you some questions on your submission. Go ahead.
The reason council has called for this review has been made explicit. In the agenda, item 9, you have said the purpose is to review existing precinct structure plans within activity centres to encourage investment and development. However, this is not what the majority of the community want to see. In item 21A of the agenda, the top key opinion or theme of submissions to the draft plan says the plan will fundamentally ruin Eltham Village. In the Eltham Community Engagement Report, 2 of the top 3 themes of the One Big Idea responses included planting more trees and constraining new development. And the top 2 themes of the One Thing You Love in the report was a sense of community and the natural environment. This is the kind of Eltham residents want to see. The original 2004 structure plan was notably informed by community sentiment. It looked to improve the centre's landscape quality and character and continued to be the heart of the Eltham community. It even explicitly protected the old Shire office site in Eltham with a resolution to retain the land in public ownership and ensure that future redevelopment be in response to demonstrated community need. Recent protests against the sale of reserves on the site have driven home the importance of this land to the community. The draft structure plan, however, proposes an increase to the extent of the activity centre and an increase in heights within the centre. The draft plan takes a 2004 structure plan and adds more elements to it to encourage investment and development. This includes employment anchors, entertainment, and nightlife. These extra elements are trying to satisfy a minority with commercial interests at the expense of the wishes of the majority. It's especially concerning to notice that it opens up the old Shire office site to sale or development as an educational, health, or public administration anchor. This is contradictory to what the community has expressed as wishing for the site. The increased emphasis on investment and development will fundamentally change the character of Eltham for the worse. By trying to be more like Heidelberg or Doncaster, what is distinctive about Eltham will diminish. Instead, the new structure plan will focus on promoting an Indigenous tree canopy and experience of the natural environment. 2, directing development to include meeting the community's social and cultural needs. And 3, better guiding future built form in accordance with the wishes expressed by the Eltham community.
Thank you, Lindsay. That takes your 3 minutes up. Well timed. Councillors, does anybody have a question for Lindsay? Councillor Clark.
Lindsay, your sort of commentary basically rejects the previous plan and this plan. How would you suggest that council respond to the state government's requirements under the planning scheme to have an activity centre when essentially your argument is not to have one?
Well, actually, if I may just correct you, I'm not, my sentiments are not against the original structure plan. The 2004 structure plan was in fact very well constructed. There was a lot of work put into it, and many stakeholders were engaged if you read the introduction to that structure plan. Secondly, I think it's appropriate to respond to the state government in a positive way and make provision for housing, transport, etc., in response to community needs, not to have necessarily investment and development being encouraged. It should really be in response to community or to people's needs.
So can I just then ask you, what do you see are any of the significant height changes in this document shouldn't proceed?
I don't think any height increases should be made. I think it's against what the community has indicated in the consultation.
You're aware that the only height changes in here are some changes between the Youth Road and the current transport centre. They're the only changes to height. So do you accept all of the others, which is simply a continuation of the existing scheme, are acceptable?
Yes, I certainly do. I consider what is in the scheme at present acceptable. I don't reject that. What I reject on behalf of the community, because this is what the community has expressed, is an increase of any additional height to any part of that centre. And may I also add that there have been no controls put in place yet for the increased area of the community centre. So the whole Diamond Street precinct, the aged care facility, there's been no discussion of the height controls that might be put in place for that area, and that could have significant impact on...
So just on the same point, given you've introduced another issue there, you're also aware that there are no changes to the zones or anything else on that particular site. So the current limits, which are 3 levels, will simply continue under the scheme.
Well, if that's the case, then I'm pleased to hear that, but I suspect that we will probably see the extent of the site developed to its full capacity, which means instead of the majority of the building being a single or double story, it'll probably all be 3 stories.
But the whole site can't be developed. It's subject to a landscape overlay. Anyway, I'll move on.
Councillor, did you have another question, Councillor Clark?
Yes. So, Lindsay, do you support the increased setbacks off Circulatory Road to increase the landscape zone within that precinct?
Yes, I do.
And do you see that as one of the great benefits of this scheme?
I think if you're going to ask me what the biggest benefit of the scheme is that it locks in the 5.5 meter setback from the front boundary as opposed to the curb of the street, which has caused enormous difficulty for us at VCAT.
Thank you.
Councillor Demerit.
Thanks for your submission, Lindsay. As always, enlightening. I'm wondering how do you see the idea of increasing heights between Youth Road and the train station? What effect would that have on the look and feel of town centre and people's enjoyment of it?
Well, Councillor, if one considers that we're talking about a vision for the Eltham Town Centre that the community would like to see more vegetation, more of a natural feel, more of an open air feel, increasing any of the heights is going to negate that. It's going to make buildings and spaces, urban spaces, feel more closed in rather than less closed in.
And from, you've obviously thought about the community expectations. What do you think are the 2 or 3 things we could do to really meet community expectations with this plan?
I think that one of the most important things would be protection of the old Shire office site. The community has expressed on a number of occasions at a number of events that they would like to see that area really kept predominantly natural. They've spoken about amphitheatres, they've spoken about outdoor sculpture parks, they've spoken about outdoor gyms, and that kind of open air feel. So I think protecting the old Shire office site from overdevelopment would be probably number 1. I think that acknowledging that Eltham really is quite unique in its natural setting, and it's on the doorstep of the Yarra Valley. It has so much potential to provide something unique and special in the form of artisan bakeries, dairies, providing for a different kind of experience, not only for the residents, but for visitors to Eltham. And I think that the structure plan that focuses primarily on encouraging investment and development is missing this opportunity. I think that with COVID-19, we're going to see a lot more people working from home, a lot more online shopping. So that means less offices and less shops. And what we're going to see is that people are going to come out really to socialise, to be part of a community, to have a sense of belonging and connection. And that's what I think should be the vision for Eltham. I think that there's so much potential here, but it's the starting point. The starting point as promoting commerce and industry.
Thank you, Lindsay. Did you have another question, Councillor Demerit?
And just finally, the major activity centre, should that zone be expanded or left the same?
The existing centre, I think, should certainly not be expanded.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perkins.
Lindsay, you raise a very good point about the council plan and the encouragement of investment and development in the council plan. Now the dying days of council we're in at the moment, only a few months of this council to go. Would you suggest that that's perhaps not the best thing to have in our council plan? That encouragement of investment and development, should it be more about encouragement of neighbourhood character, or supporting or protecting and enhancing neighbourhood character? Should those sort of words be in there as well if you're going to talk about investment and development?
I would like to think so, yes, Councillor Perkins. I think that responding to to expressed wishes of the community, which relate to the environment, which relate to community, which relate to culture, the development of culture. I think those should be the starting points for the actions that council take.
So do you believe it's fundamentally flawed?
I think it is. Yes, I do. I think it is fundamentally flawed. I think that the starting point needs to come from the community, and this is not a community that has commercial interests primary in their minds. It's more about people.
Thank you. Any other questions from other councillors? Councillor Brooker.
Thank you, Lindsay. Look, just a broad question. How would you respond to those people who would say that the encouragement of development and investment that you've spoken of, how would you respond to those people that say that's going to enhance what you get, that development is going to be sympathetic to the Eltham kind of character, that is actually going to add a look and feel to Eltham that otherwise is not there at the moment. So how would you respond to that position generally?
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
Well, you've said you're concerned with the fact that the priority was investment and development. So how would you respond to people that say investment and development can assist you in achieving the sort of community sort of feel of Eltham? How the built form or the canopy trees around it, that can actually assist you making the major activity centre more like what you expect Eltham to be rather than less, if that's clear.
Well, Councillor Brooker, as an architect, I'm acutely aware of the fact that that developers are very important in the whole picture. I acknowledge that they make a huge contribution to our community in the sense that they make the investment and they're the ones that build the houses that many people live in, and we have them to thank for that. So I'm not saying there shouldn't be any investment or any development. What I'm saying is that the starting point needs to be more people orientated. I think that that development should really come in response to expressed needs. And I think that this structure plan will guide that development. And that's the good part of this plan. The fact that planners are thinking about things like where there needs to be landscaping in the front of the properties and making sure that those setbacks are kind of locked in, and that we have policies like the significant landscape overlay.
Thank you, Lindsay. Any other questions, councillors? If not, thank you, Lindsay, for your submission tonight.
Thank you.
We're now going to go to Sue Dyatt, who's speaking on behalf of Carlotta. So, Sue, or sorry, not on behalf of Carlotta, but on behalf of the Eltham Community Action Group. Obviously, Carlotta was having some technical difficulties. Welcome, Sue. Can you hear me? If you could just unmute yourself, that would be great. Just move your mouse up to the top of your little box with your name on it and push unmute. Hi, Sue. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Fantastic. We can hear you now.
I can't see myself. That's fine. Look,
go up to the right-hand corner and just whatever comes up, and it'll say start video.
Don't push your luck.
Can you see me, Sue?
I can see everyone else, so that's fine.
Lucky you.
We need to see you, that's all.
But the other, I think there's something wrong with the link because there's a real delay, so I can hear two people talking.
Sounds like you've got two up. Well, if you've got 3 minutes and then councillors will ask you some questions maybe. So fire away.
I can see everyone else, so that's fine. Right. I'm starting from now. I think there's something wrong.
We've got something in the background, Sue. Have you got something else on your computer playing?
I've got my voice in the background.
You've got 3 minutes. Can you turn the YouTube channel off that you're watching council on, because that'll be what the echo is.
Right. I'm starting from now.
Yes, that's what it is. I can hear it now. You're watching the delayed YouTube because it's a little bit behind us talking. So if you could turn that off and then just focus on the Zoom meeting, that would be great. YouTube channel off that you're watching council on, because that'll be what the
Fabulous. Love the Zoom meeting.
Quiet, Councillor Clark. Sue, try again.
Bring back Carlotta.
We're trying.
I'm happy to read it if need be.
I think we'll do that because it's time.
The opportunity for questions is too good to miss that.
Oh, she's back. Now, if you could unmute yourself, Sue, just move your mouse up to the... She's gone again. She's back. If you could unmute yourself in the top right-hand corner, that would be great. Now, can you hear me?
Right, I can hear you all the time, and I don't.
Right, now we're right, and we haven't got voice in the background. So you have 3 minutes.
Oh dear. Yes, and
fire away.
I obviously wasn't the author of this. However,
that's okay.
I have seen a version of this. These comments in our detailed written submission reflect ECAG's strong interest in Eltham and the importance of this structure plan in guiding its future. Although through ECAG, through its considerable experience with the structure plan and design guidelines at VCAT, possibly more experience than some of the current planners, is keenly aware of the need for the plan to be precise in its wording and crystal clear in its intent and a reflection of the community's ideals for our Eltham Activity Centre. By removing uncertainty, it would also be a financial saving to council in officer time and VCAT hearings. The strength of the document and how it stands up to scrutiny will depend not only on the broad vision statements, but on its detail. For example, the 2004 vision is a succinct 2-paragraph statement. This draft vision, by contrast, is wordy, repetitive, and clumsily written. What does ethos of experimentation with light, space, and materiality and form mean? And how many times in 4 sentences can you say workers and employment? The Activity Centre survey responses show that Eltham residents want more than merely a place of employment. The vision statement should reflect this. There are a number of inaccuracies in the draft, most specifically relating to the number of stories, and the use of the word high density is of concern. From the housing discussion paper definitions, it appears that Nillumbik does not have high density housing. However, high density is mentioned throughout the document, also medium to high. There are so many instances where the heights are overstated that one wonders whether the DLA consultants were working for a template for another suburb, or whether we've been misinformed about the actual planned density development for Eltham. Could the Eltham catchment, as overstated by 220,000, have influenced the level of commercial development suggested for the centre? It is suggested that the activity centre could accommodate over 1,000 more people and that 1,100 additional dwellings should be encouraged within walking distance. Does this mean 4,000 to 5,000 extra people in Eltham? The range of suggested possibilities for uses of the old Shire office site is so extensive and varied, it would appear to be that there is no clear vision for the site other than to have it developed. The plan needs a clearer statement regarding community use and ownership. What is not allowed should be stated, and if not, the integrity and importance of the site is diminished. The frequent mentions of landscaping, particularly canopy trees, is welcomed. The many
I'm sorry to cut you off, Sue, but you've had your 3 minutes and we've got a lot of speakers on tonight, so I'll open up the floor to councillors for questions. Councillor Perkins.
So I don't know if you heard Lindsay earlier, but Lindsay put a view that the plan, and you know, I'd say this for Diamond Creek as well, perhaps I shouldn't paraphrase for Lindsay, but she stated that she believed the plan was fundamentally flawed because it relied on a report directly in support of the council plan, which was to review existing precinct structure plans within the activity centres to encourage investment and development. Does ECAG have a concern around that overarching strategy by which these plans were developed?
It is one of the, that statement is one of the concerns because it is purely focusing on economic activity. It's the activity of the community that it also involves economic activity that should be considered. The social aspects of a site or an area are interlinked with economic. You can't have one without the other.
So is it, what, a bit half-baked?
Can we have a proper question, Councillor Perkins? That's just a derogatory term. Can something a little bit more substantial, please?
The EMAC review, the strategy does have many problems. It does appear not to have grasped the value that people who live here have on things other than purely economic. And yes, economic underpins the social needs, but on the other hand, the social needs are what drives the economic imperatives.
Any other questions, Councillor Perkins?
Not for the moment, thank you.
Any other councillors? Councillor Demeric, did you have your hand up?
No, I didn't, but thank you for asking.
Any other councillors have questions for Sue? Councillor Clark.
Sue, thank you for your submissions. Just so I can understand the weight that one needs to give to this. When did ECAG meet on this matter and how many were in attendance?
This, as you obviously realise, this has been going on for several months. There has been more than one conversation and with varying numbers of people, and it has been put on Facebook for comment, and it has been...
My question was specific, Sue. When did you meet and how many were present?
Well, I can't remember what the COVID restrictions were at the time it was discussed, but we have not had any mass meetings since March when the COVID restrictions started coming in. This has meant lots of things have to be dealt with online and over the telephone.
So
any other questions, Councillor Clark?
Yes, my question is just to clarify, I take it that it was no more than your executive had a teleconference at best.
You have taken some, you've made an assumption, and that's not quite right.
You haven't given me a clear answer. That's why I'm trying to get it clarified.
I don't think we'll be able to clarify it in the terms that you're asking the question.
I think we'll move on. Asked and answered, Councillor Clark. Councillor Demeric,
sorry, that you've not got
do you have another question?
My question is very simple. Did you have a meeting on this matter?
There were more than one meetings.
Thank you, Sue.
And
another
how many
question?
meetings were there?
Sue, can you please?
Sorry, I haven't got an answer to my question. If Sue intends just to basically say, look, we don't want to.
The Mayor has said that your question is finished.
No,
Who's running this meeting, Peter? You, are you?
Excuse me, both councillors, can you both be quiet? Let Sue gather a call.
I'll come back to some more questions in a moment then, Mayor.
Councillor Demery. Thank you.
Could you please just briefly tell us what you're about to start something on vegetation. I'm just interested in just a couple of dot points on that, please.
Right.
It needs to be a question, Councillor Merrick. We can't have more comment that goes on for half an hour.
Please expand on her comments on vegetation.
Thank you. That's a better question.
The document does recognise that there is a need for landscaping, and that the landscaping encompasses canopy trees. However, further on in various places, the words green is used in reference to landscaping. The word indigenous is used. The wording native is used, as though that they were interchangeable, and they're not. This is why there is a need for this document to be precise. If you're talking about indigenous, talk about indigenous. Don't just say green. It really is imprecise. We do value our vegetation, the vegetation within the town centre area, because of the amount of denser development is decreasing, and it takes a long time for replacement vegetation to grow to any sort of size. So we need to have the right sorts of descriptors in any of our council's documents.
Thank you, Sue. Next question, Councillor Demery.
Does ECAG have a position on some of the officers I don't think they're with us anymore, but have made the suggestion that we need to be changing our planting. Indigenous won't work in, the indigenous trees to the area don't like a lot of people and don't like to be around civilization, and that perhaps some of our planning needs to change to account for climate change and the need to be in close to people. Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, I realise that this is an evolving situation, but people who are trying to change the palette, shall we say, of planting will immediately point to a manna gum as being no good to have where you're sitting under. Yes, everybody knows that one drops limbs, but there are a range of other indigenous trees that can be used quite safely. It's a case of looking further. It's a case of growing the trees. We need to get the planting. The seeds have to come from areas where the trees are growing under greater stress.
Any other questions, Councillor?
And therefore it's a very complex question and cannot be answered very glibly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, Councillor Demery?
No, thank you.
Councillor Perkins.
So I think Councillor Clark makes a very good point, and I wonder if you would support the notion of deferring adoption of the plan until this COVID-19 process or the COVID-19 pandemic has ended, to allow community groups such as your own to be able to meet and discuss draft plans such as this.
I think that is a very thoughtful point, because it has been very difficult to get groups of people together. People are, quite frankly, many people's minds are elsewhere, quite sensibly concerned about the family and friends and where their standard of living is and where the future is. That dealing with a plan like this, which is cut and dried and was written well before all of this started, it would be prudent to put it on one side for a while people have a breathing space, because making a plan that is so far into the future when we don't know what the future is, and putting constraints on future councils, because changing a strategy plan takes time and takes money.
Thank you, Sue. Any other questions, Councillor Perkins? Councillor Clark.
Sue, in a similar vein, given if there were extensive delays to this document, does not that put at risk some of the advantages in this document, particularly the setbacks from footpath and setbacks around Circulatory Road? So if upler applications were made in the interim, we wouldn't have the protections that this document offers?
You're correct in that. Sometimes you have to lose some, risk something to get a better outcome.
My second question is really just again about trying to understand the basis upon which your group makes a submission. Your group, under its legal entity, has no more than 7 members. And I'm not conscious of, other than the annual meetings that you've had any other meetings. And so I'm just trying to understand then, again, how you can explain to me the weight which this document that you've forwarded has.
Well, as I mentioned, people contact us through Facebook. We have private conversations, as you might say, private written interchanges on Facebook. We have people who receive our newsletters who contact us. We have different ways, rather than with a range of people, rather than, yes, the 7 people that appear on as required by corporate affairs.
You've got flyers?
Pardon?
Flyers?
Oh, flyers. We do our best as a community group to contact as many people as possible.
Thank you, Sue. Any other questions?
Am I right to suggest that you were able to get a flyer out on the housing strategy, but weren't able to get a flyer out on this document?
Well, if you give us the money, we'll get people walking on the streets. We're volunteers.
Thank you. Any other questions, Councillor?
Sorry, Mayor, I'm just asking for people to give me a clear answer. I didn't get an answer to my question. I'm not trying to badger. I'm just simply asking a simple question. You didn't put out a flyer on this matter, is that correct?
No, we didn't.
Right, but we did put one out on the housing strategy.
Yes, we did, because we had time to do that. It's a volunteer organisation. We get no funding from the council. We're not expected to do your job.
Councillor Brooker has a question, Sue.
Yeah, thank you, Sue. Look, you stated, the intention or the vision statement of the 2004 document was preferable to this one and clearer. How would you respond to people who say that the outcome 16 years later was not that commensurate with the clearness of the vision from 2004 when you look at the Eltham area, maybe the major activity centre and possibly more broadly around that?
Talking without giving much thought to it beforehand, and that's because I'm on the spot tonight, and I was not the person who wrote the words. I would say that with the best will in the world, an ideal world is not achievable because things change and you turn around and say, how did that happen? The length of time it's taken to get, say, the town square done, that goes back into the 80s where there were plans to get the town centre. Things change very slowly, and sometimes the outcome will not please everybody. You do need to have a clear vision.
Anything else, Councillor Brooker? You've unmuted yourself.
Yeah, no, sorry, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? If not, thank you very much for stepping into the breach tonight, Sue. That was great.
Fine, thank you.
Next we have Anthony Dennehy. Are you there, Anthony? Welcome, Anthony. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can. Fire away.
Oh.
You have 3 minutes and then councillors may ask you some questions.
And I need to start my video. Oh, there it is. Okay, now I'd like to share my screen if that's okay.
Because of certain local law, we can't actually see it unless the council governance staff have seen it before, because we've got no idea what it holds. So I'm sorry.
Oh yes,
Can't show
sorry.
a video.
Didn't think to okay that beforehand. That's okay. I'll just
We can send it to, if you'd like to send it to Blaga, our governance office. She's happy to send it to all councillors afterwards. So if you'd like to speak to that, and then councillors can see your video afterwards offline.
Great, thank you. I'll do that.
Thanks,
so
Anthony.
I'm mainly talking to theme 3, movement and access. And the main point, quoting from the paper, it says, to create a network that encourages people to walk and cycle safely to and within the centre. So on that, just also like to quote from a paper that the council puts out on transport. It says it's the council's aim to reduce dependency on cars by its residents. And this is something that I'm glad that it's actually included in the plan, but unfortunately there's not much detail about how this would be brought about. And my fear is that it's in the plan, but how it will actually be implemented, because it's not set out in any detail, it just may not be done very well. And it's quite understandable in the Eltham area for people to say, oh yes, it would be good if people could walk and cycle more. But of course, we all know it's a very hilly area. And so how can we change people? Well, of course, things are very different now to what they were a few years ago, and we have e-bikes. So I think it's something that we really have to consider is a possibility. Like, we could actually really get a much higher percentage of people in the Eltham area walking in and riding into the centre. And also people coming along the Diamond Creek Trail. It's very well used. We get a lot of people, but they just flow on past Eltham and on their way, because it's not very easy to just divert off that path and come into the centre of Eltham. So I just would really like to see some work done on making that happen, that we actually take concrete steps. And part of that, of course, I'm just looking at my slides. I've got an aerial view of the whole Eltham Activity Centre. And when you look at that from Google Earth, you just see a very large area of it. I'm sorry, I've got 35 seconds left. Very large area of it is taken up with these little coloured dots all over the place. And you know what those little coloured dots are all over the place, taking up a large area of the whole centre? They're cars, car parking. We've got a huge area of the Eltham Activity Centre taken up with car parking. Now, we've got this beautiful town square. We could actually extend that town square across the road into that area near Aldi and across to the other side. If we took away some of that
I'm sorry,
space.
your time has come to an end, and I'm sure councillors will want to see your video. I might start off with questions, and that is how you see or where you would see increased bike traffic or bike paths within the activity centres.
I see everywhere, like if we take away some of the car parking and turn it into more shared space. What I mean by shared space, and this is why I wanted to actually show pictures, because if you've been to Europe, even down the streets of Florence and so on, you will understand what I mean by shared space. It is space between the buildings, between the shops. It won't be bitumen, because bitumen gives you the idea that this is a road and you can go fast on it. It will be cobblestones or bricks, and people are walking. Occasionally a car will just very slowly go through, but they can't go fast, and they don't even think about going fast because of the traffic calming technique and the cobblestones or the bricks and planter boxes. You just know that this is a shared space, and that would be inappropriate. So I think we could just extend this whole area to make it much more people friendly, so that you could be walking, you could be riding slowly along, because we'd be using, instead of having the bitumen roads. I've been here 7 years and I still don't know the names of all the roads, sorry, but the roads between Aldi, Woolworths and Coles, those just not above, not into the higher sections, but down to Main Road, they could be paved, and they could be made so that they were considered to be, yes, cars could slowly go down there, but it really would be
I think we get
space.
the gist of your thoughts, and much as I'd like to see the middle of Eltham like not so much Venice, but Florence maybe. Unfortunately, some of us live a long way away and we still have to get to the middle of Eltham. But anyway, that's not really a question. So I'll hand it over to other councillors who may have some other questions for you. Councillor Perkins.
A local example, you envisaging the Burke Street Mall.
It's not a kind of, but but that's got a tram going up it. So
it's a fairly heavily, it's got some tall buildings as well.
Yes, that's right. In the slides that I send you, there'll be better examples than the Burke Street Mall. The idea of a mall has negative connotations because we've had malls since the 1970s and they don't always work out that well, do they? Malls, sometimes they become even antisocial spaces. So it has to be done properly.
Any other questions, Councillor Perkins?
No.
Councillor Brooker.
Just a question to Rosa, if she's happens to be around, is she?
Yes, she is. Just one moment and we'll get her onto the screen for you, Councillor Brooker. Here she comes. Hi, Rosa. You might have to unmute. Fire away, Councillor Brooker.
Terrific. Look, Rosa, I wonder, the commentary that we just heard about using the car parking spaces in Aldi and Woolworths potentially for bike lanes and so on. I just thought maybe a comment from you about who owns those spaces and the potential to actually realise that ambition.
Thank you, Councillor Booker, through the Mayor. You're right, some of the car parking spaces within the centre are privately owned, and we enforce those car parks through an agreement that is between council and the private landowner. So a modification to some of those agreements would be required. And some of those are also subject to some planning permit applications, which have various requirements in terms of the number of car parking spaces that are required. So again, we would have to look strongly at, which could be used for an alternative use, but certainly something that we can look into.
Is there a question to Anthony there, Councillor Brooker?
No, not really, but thanks for your submission, Anthony, and I guess for expanding our viewpoint of what this could be in shared spaces. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor, anybody? Councillor Demerit.
Anthony, I just wonder what you think. One of my thoughts for the area is that it's sort of a township that's broken up. So walkability has been greatly enhanced by having a few more crossings across the Diamond Creek, and perhaps a trail that follows, closely to the railway line, which seems to be the flattest area through Eltham and perhaps heading towards Greensborough, picking up Montmorency on the way.
Sorry, we've already got the Diamond Creek Trail. You're suggesting another trail as well, going off in a different direction, are you? Yeah, I'm suggesting
perhaps a trail towards Montmorency and Greensborough, because the train track tends to follow a fairly level piece of ground. So.
Oh, yes. Look, it would be fantastic. Well, we've already got some bike paths. I've gone for a ride a couple of times from Eltham and then picking up the bike path along the Western Freeway, and it's doable. But that's one thing that would be fantastic, to join that up and make it a bit simpler and more friendly.
Sorry, just to perhaps corral my question a little bit. I'm probably talking about more commuter. So people can make a decision which railway station they want to head to. So you just head down the hill and then can move laterally along a relatively flat area on your e-bike rather than...
Oh, yes. Yes, well, look, I'm for opening up as many routes to as many places by e-bike and getting as many cars off the roads as possible. And I'm not suggesting at all, Mayor Egan, I know that there are quite a few people who still must drive, and that's all very good. But, if we can go to, say, 95% of Nillumbik residents driving everywhere whenever they need to go anywhere, to even 85%, how wonderful would that be if we could even increase, walking and bike riding by 10, make it 10% or 15%.
Unfortunately, 90% of Nillumbik is rural and a long way away. Any other questions there from any other councillors? I do appreciate your ideas though, Anthony. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Next we have Howard Turner. You there, Howard? Can you hear me? If you'd like to unmute yourself, move your mouse up to the top of your square where your name is, and there should be an unmute button. A word come up.
Unmute, I've unmuted. Can you hear me?
Fantastic, I can. Yes. How are you?
Great, good, thank you. How are you?
Fine, thank you. You have 3 minutes and then councillors might like to ask you a few questions, so fire away.
I'll go quick.
And I will stop you at 3 minutes.
I am more concerned about the problems the major activity centre could cause in the existing industrial area, mixing leisure and industry businesses. Currently, we have 10 industrial businesses and 4 leisure business centres, all mixed into the dead-end area of Peel Street. The industrial businesses all need access for trucks, couriers and semi-trailers. Parking and access caused by gyms and dance studios is at its worst from early morning to 11 a.m. and from 3:30 to 6:30 p.m, which coincidentally is the same time that trucks and couriers need access to industrial premises. What we know is this: increased traffic, both cars and trucks going into the dead end of Peel Street, is causing problems. Currently, there are no footpaths for pedestrians in Peel Street on which to walk. Mums and Bubs classes are taking place daily at Revive Gym. This means that mothers with children are parking anywhere they can and then walking on the road to the gyms, with couriers, trucks, semi-trailers delivering or picking up from the industrial businesses in Pearl Street. In the AWM precinct, electrical tradies are picking up equipment in the late afternoon, just as mothers are dropping off young girls for lessons at the dance studio, as are tradies at High Spec and A&A Timber. Equilibrium Gym appears to have a large membership of mainly young people who I believe cause a lot of the access and parking problem in Pearl Street. This parking problem really ratchets up when the gyms, dance studio change over classes. You have a period of time where people are arriving for their class, looking for parking, and the existing class is not finished. You then have double the amount of cars in Pearl Street mixing with the trucks. From what I observe, these gymnasiums, dance studios operate and simply have insufficient space for their clients' parking without taking up industrial businesses' parking. Surely there must be some guidelines as to the amount of legal parking these businesses need before starting up. Finally, in what is a predominantly industrial area of Eltham, leisure fitness and industrial companies do not mix. I believe there are accidents just waiting to happen.
Thank you very much, Howard. I'll hand it over to councillors for questions. Councillor Demerick.
Howard, thanks for your submission. I take it if you've got gyms and leisure facilities in your sites, how do you feel about bars and restaurants?
Well, interesting, and there is, you already probably know, there's the Prosciutto Brothers down the road.
Yep.
And it's been there for about 5 years. But interesting, the hours that are not they are allowed to open don't cause any problems.
So you sort of see the main problem sort of being that, what, 10 o'clock till 3 o'clock window?
No, I see a problem mixing leisure with industry.
But you don't see such a problem with Prosciutto Brothers?
Well, only because of the amount of hours that are allowed to open. It's obvious if you get more of them in, then the hours will probably change.
But I suppose my question is there an hour restriction that would make it better, or is it it's just full stop having that?
Well, I think you've got to keep them separated.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Demerick. Councillor Ashton had a hand up next.
Thanks, Howard. How long have you had your business there, please? And, you know, sorry, how have you seen the area obviously change?
Well, we've been in this particular factory for nearly 30 years. And it's been always what I would call an industrial area. Hence, you get the semi-trailers and the large trucks. And three particular businesses use that. That's AA Timber, AWM, and ourselves. And from the perspective of young women in cars with their children, I just think it's unsafe.
So, you know, obviously those businesses have been in Eltham for a while. You know, do you see that mix is, you know, are we threatened to lose those industrial businesses?
Well, I'd say yes. You can't, the answer to that is yes, unfortunately. You'll lose jobs.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ashton. I think Councillor Perkins had his hand up next.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time, Howard. I'm not from Eltham, I'm from that other place, but just wondering, what used to be the roller rink or the roller skate place, is that still there? Like, I'm just sort of thinking about, you know, a traditional...
I believe it is, yes.
And is that, because it's been there for so long, it hasn't really caused an issue, it's been operating for a long time, or is it more to do with its hours?
I suspect, how can I say it? The rink, or the roller skating rink, has always been there. And there's always been a parking issue down in that area ever since I've been in the factory that we're in, because that's a very popular area for young children to go. But there's not that much industry there. In Peel Street, it's a different ball game. There are a lot of factories in Peel Street.
Any other questions? Councillor Clark.
Evening, Howard. Howard, and just for the councillor's perspective, you're actually in precinct number 12. The area Councillor Perkins was talking about is precinct 13, so they're actually in different precincts within the industrial zone. The problem, as I understand it, we need to sort out for you is we've got you sit within an industrial zone, which unfortunately also has the disadvantage of it permitting gyms and dance schools and the like, which is where the conflict arises. As I understand it in the conversation we've had, what you're really seeking is a different application of the zone to be able to prohibit conflicting uses against the main purpose, which is industrial. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So I think we need to look at whether we created an activity centre zone here and then determine the various uses within that zone, which will give us greater control. The broad problem being that we've currently got a zone, a state government type zone, which we can't control the absolute uses in. So if we can do that, that'll fix your problem.
Any questions there, Councillor Clark? Or
no, sorry, I was not sort of asking him, did he agree? But that's
right.
fine. I think I got the gist that he did.
Councillor Brooker.
No.
Oh, it's just that you unmuted yourself, so I thought you wanted.
Did I? Apologies.
All right, thank you very much, Howard, for your submission.
Thank you.
Obviously, councillors will take that on board.
Thank you.
Next, we have Marie-Claire Desfontaine, who is a late request. Are you there, Marie-Claire? Yes, you are, with a beautiful flower on the front, tulips. Welcome. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
We certainly can. Thank you. You have 3 minutes and then councillors may wish to ask you some questions.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Some of this will reiterate all that's been said, but I'll go through what I wrote down. So my first point was that the meeting was aptly called Future Nillumbik, which for me seemed a bit ironic since 36 responses from an elephant population of over 18,000 didn't really reflect the word future. Is this meeting, does this truly reflect the community's thoughts, feelings and ideas? A council's job, as far as I'm concerned, or one of its jobs, is to represent, advocate and inform and stimulate discussion. The council has failed to get the information across through poor communication, lack of innovative ways to connect and a lack of persistence. Only on one occasion did they set up a table in the square, no handout, just internet access, very difficult to absorb information and reflect and give a response to key messages, especially on the internet when it's 80 pages long. And I'm thinking of the more older population, etc. COVID, I asked for a postponement. Yes, you went from 4 to 6. Your question earlier, I think it should have been a 4 to 6 month debate. It shouldn't be just a week's, and 4, 6, 7 weeks, way too little. Shopkeepers I spoke to, locals, my key friends, everyone, no one had heard of the proposed plan. And I find that incredulous, to be quite honest, that you were proposing in the plan document of this 5-storey above these shopkeepers who are currently there. So you've really failed in your duty of care for transparency, especially as we have elected you to be transparent. My key areas are the 5 stories high proposed building. Eltham is, as stated, is unique, canopied and hilly. People live here for these reasons. Houses are nestled into the landscape. The topography of the town centre does not lend to high rise. We are without a vista and horizon and very much dominated by the train line, bus station, road, car parks and supermarkets. There is very little true pedestrian areas, more like slithers of pathways. To have buildings towering, because that is what they will do, will suffocate and make us feel hemmed in. The area will be soulless. Mental health and our living spaces go hand in hand. Most city planning very much reflects on the negatives of a concrete environment. We shouldn't be judged in a generic way just because we are a railway station. Eltham is not a destination place. The artisan food might be brilliant, but they will not attract people. Nillumbik has bigger vistas for people to want to go to. We are sort of passing through. We do need an art gallery. That was a really positive, and it should go next to the library. Too much high density housing. People will have cars, and the main road cannot cope with anymore. The fire risk will increase substantially. Diamond Creek and Greensborough are so close that they are definitely the better for high-rise options. There's already empty shops. I've counted 5 every time, and plus they're growing. We do not need people to come, businesses who work from home will continue to work from home because they like their treed environment.
Thank you, Marie-Claire. I'm sorry to cut you off, but
that's fine.
3 minutes. I'll hand it over to councillors. I'm sure they have some questions.
Okay, lovely. Thank you.
Councillor Perkins.
Yeah, Marie-Claire, great submission until you lost me right at the end. Like, I'm thinking you certainly know your stuff, but then you say that Diamond Creek needs to get the high rise, and that's the way that's the answer. How can you possibly put that line that high rise is not appropriate for Eltham but is for Diamond Creek?
Because of the topography. If you look at Diamond, you stand in Eltham, and you've not walked those paths. You literally get off a train, you walk to a bus stop, you cross the main road, you've got a pathway, you've got shops, you go through, which is the town square. And I'll be honest, it's a pathetic town square. It isn't a great town square. You look at that lovely Spoons restaurant, whatever it is, and you look out onto a car park. The below part of the Woolies one, there is no vista, and high rise might be just because we are in a depression there. I'm not, can't put the right words to it, but it is a depression. So yes, you'll get 5 stories there because yes, you can build them, but it will become enclosed and will become like Box Hill, soulless. It will just become concrete. And all the other people who've spoken have mentioned what Eltham is, and it's unique. And you as a council, really, all of you should be advocating and stamping your feet for something unique.
That's okay for Diamond Creek, is it? But not for Eltham.
Diamond Creek, if you go to, has a whole it has from one end to the other is so bigger, it's flatter, you don't feel so hemmed in, it's not as treed, and Diamond Creek can fight its side, but I would say what stories
you're throwing us under the bus.
No, that's why Diamond Creek, I presume, had their own activity centre plan. And out of 80 pages, I wasn't going to read another 80 pages on Diamond Creek. So I'm sure if you communicate well, you'll have hundreds of people communicating from Diamond Creek. And good on.
Is there another question there, Councillor Perkins? I'm sure you've got lots. Marie-Claire. Councillor Clark.
Marie-Claire, thank you for your submission.
That's all right.
And I encourage you to read the Diamond Creek strategy plan at some stage. It's interesting reading. My question is about the train stabling and the car park, which currently exists off Youth Road. I'm wondering, this plan proposes alternative active uses as opposed to parking a bunch of trains. Do you think that's a good idea, or what would you see happening in that sector of the world?
Well, I actually personally feel that from Liquorland to Platform 11, you could build, they need to be connected by 1-storey buildings, and they could be new shops as far as minimum, and what's currently is the bus turning area, as it is now, could be a greened area, a community bit that will link really the rest of Eltham, and you could just, so that would be fantastic. And I feel the trains or the buses should be diverted around to the back of the station and next to Youth Road and the station, and that should be the bus area. There shouldn't be any train terminus or parking for carriages that are not in use, but I think that could be the bus area, and then there could be a walkover bridge and good access from that bus area over the railway and into this potentially new shops area. So we feel a little bit more that we're kind of pushing out from the the little bit of space that we do have as humans living here.
Thank you, Marie-Claire. Any other questions, Councillor Clark?
I think I'll leave it at that.
Any other questions from other councillors? Councillor Brooker.
Thank you, Marie-Claire, for your submission. Look, just one of the themes that has been brought to our attention throughout this process is that the Eltham Major Activity Centre since 2014 has had provision for 3 to 5 stories. So the criticism that is coming about the heights is misplaced, because it has existed since 2014 and we actually haven't seen any developments. So look, how would you respond to that generally? I mean, I know you don't like 5 stories, but you know, they've existed there now. So the commentary that we're doing something radical is somewhat misplaced. How would you respond to that?
I think you're using the word existed and making it out that the what was proposed in that existed moment was correct. It wasn't correct, you know, and the years from 2014 to now are quite a few to be able to reflect. And I feel that, you know, we shouldn't just have to sort of accept what was done by probably not yourself and whoever. And from, you know, I've only been in Eltham 12 years, but I can guarantee it's changed. The density, the traffic, a lot has changed, and that's even in that short 12 years. So I don't think you should be beholden to the word existed. And because it existed doesn't mean it's right. And it wasn't right when it was first proposed.
Any other questions, Councillor Brooker?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, thank you very much for your submission, Marie-Claire.
All right, thank you, Karen. Cheers.
Next, we have Betty Russell. Are you there, Betty? Oh, sorry, the CEO, Carl, is reading Betty. Fire away, CEO. You have 3 minutes, and I will then ask you to stop because we have a time constraint.
Thank you, Mayor, councillors and members of the virtual gallery. Some I won't get done in 3 minutes, but Betty's I will. While there are aspects of the plan which should be applauded, this appeal to council focuses on the vision, which does not reflect my notion of Eltham at all. Eltham's distinctive character sets it apart from other urban areas. This should be a driving force in the plan, which generally pulls in the other direction. The plan needs to firstly emphasise and protect that which sets Eltham apart from other suburbs. In other words, its role as the gateway to the Green Wedge, sitting on the Diamond Creek and the Yarra River, Indigenous history, people who are active, creative and demonstrate an interest and pride in their town, history as a centre of artistic culture, art, architecture, locally Indigenous garden designs, markets, open spaces, parks, the river and the bushland. Secondly, the plan needs to better control development, preserve existing parks and open spaces. 5 stories is too high for anywhere in Eltham. All new buildings in the central area should be required to have underground car parking, setbacks with adequate unsealed space for locally Indigenous plantings and to absorb runoff, materials which blend into the landscape, which the plan has included. Oversight of compliance is essential. Plans to address traffic flow should be put on hold until we see if working from home is a significant trend post-COVID. Thirdly, the plan needs to repair some of the lost local character. Remove the flagpoles. Limit signage to fewer and less obtrusive signs than the proposed draft signage policy would allow. Undertake more locally Indigenous plantings. Lastly, the plan needs to learn from past mistakes and successes. A published review of the current plan should have been undertaken. An example of past mistakes in the Eltham station area. This is one of the gateways to Eltham. The previously delightful character of the station and PO area has been uglified, not by building development, but by the loss of greenery, large commercial signs on the PO area, lack of oversight on building materials used, extension of railway tracks for train storage, which needs to be artistically screened, as in Hurstbridge. In conclusion, the plan needs to maintain, protect, and restore the distinctive character of Eltham as a driving force running throughout the plan.
Thank you.
That's
Carl.
Betty's submission.
Our next one is from the Eltham Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
It's twice as long in pages, so here we go.
I'll cut you off at 3 minutes though.
ECCI requests that a representative from the committee is part of the planning and implementation team in the roll out of the Eltham Town Structure Plan. Eltham Chamber of Commerce support the following item within the structure plan. The committee would like to see an action plan on the following items. Lighting is an issue in Eltham, with more than 20 respondents making specific comments referring to lighting, including lack of lighting and areas being too dark and unsafe. This is an item that needs to be addressed. As there is a high proportion of sole traders and people working from home, the provision of small, flexible office spaces will be important to attract tenancy. In light of the current situation, this could be a good way to help businesses recover and re-enter the economy. ECCI would like to see a major employment anchor to energise the activity centre. Consider as part of the streetscape upgrades opportunities to minimise the impact of rubbish disposal infrastructure, e.g. bins and storage, and services, e.g. waste removal servicing, upon the amenity of the activity centre. Investigate implementation of an additional 200 commuter car spaces adjacent to the train station and 200 spaces adjacent to the Eltham Library. Moving forward, we would like to see a mix of businesses and uses in Eltham Town Square so that it becomes a key centre for outer northeastern suburbs. Examples are encourage uses that extend the hours of activity of the activity centre, develop a nighttime economy and strengthen its function as a place for living and working at the street level, connect and improve the bus station interchange precinct with the main town shopping centre precinct, Main Road and its width and location next to Eltham train station make it opportune to provide higher density mixed use buildings, maintaining commercial uses at the ground floor and providing office or residential uses above. Investigate the provision of additional pedestrian bridges over the railway to improve connectivity and legibility between catchment and open space to the west of the rail line, with the balance of the activity centre to the east. Enhance the public realm with seating, shade trees and space for outdoor eating. Investigate the opportunity for a signalised intersection pedestrian crossing at the junction of Main Road and Arthur Street and/or the junction of Luck Street and Main Road. ECCI have concerns following the following items within the structure plan. Only half of the feedback said they found it was easy to get around the activity centre and the look and feel of the centre. This tells us people aren't connecting with the area and may not visit for that reason. More thought needs to be put into how we can encourage people to move better throughout the whole town.
Thank you, Carl. We might leave it there. If you could perhaps circulate the submission to the councillors so that they can read it in their leisure. Sure. That is the last of the submissions on the FN 01720. So going back to, could I have a mover for the motion, Councillor Clark?
I wish to move, Mayor, that the committee acting under delegation from council notes that submissions received in response to the community consultation on the draft Eltham Major Activity Centre structure plan, and 2, a report be presented to the July ordinary meeting which will recommend changes to the draft Eltham Major Activity Centre structure plan.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Rankin. Thank you, Councillor Clark.
Mayor, in short, tonight is just to listen to submissions. Tonight is not a time to change, comment or otherwise really on the document that we've got before it. Certainly, as an individual councillor, I've had a range of conversations beyond the submitters that we've had tonight with members of the community about this document. We've had detailed and long conversations with the Eltham Chamber of Commerce and a raft of people within the industrial park. So I am personally quite confident that we've had broad community consultation on this. And to be frank, even if we letterboxed every house in the electorate, you know, it frankly is not the issue that everybody wants to spend every waking moment on. The main thing is to make sure that those who are the most directly affected are having their say, as well as those that clearly shop or use the industrial area for their particular needs to deal with industry and other uses. It is fair to say that since the earlier document was produced, one of the dilemmas of that earlier document is it needed a lot more work on design overlays to be able to deal with setbacks, and particularly some of the residential precincts. And this document in itself does do that. And we've heard tonight, when questioned from some of the submitters about some of the advantages that are contained in this document. At this point, it doesn't dramatically change the current activity centre plan, although from the conversations that I've had with a number in the community, particularly those in the industrial area, I do anticipate a raft of changes coming back that officers have been listening to about those precincts, particularly Mr. Howard earlier on, Turner, commentary around that, commentary around the peripheral uses in the industrial areas of other cafes and hotel type uses, and then where the sort of dance studios and gyms could be located. There's also a raft of opportunities which we're already seeing out of the current plan and this plan in and around the precinct around Bunnings. We've already granted a permit only a few weeks back for further development in that precinct. I think what we've heard tonight is broadly concerns by some of the residential community about height limits, which we don't dramatically change. But the precursor to what's going to make all of this happen at the end of the day in the Eltham area, and I'm really talking about west of Main Road, because east of Main Road, to be frank, there are not a lot of sites left to be developed. There are some potential for internal redevelopment in some of the car parking areas, but not a lot remains available. But west of that, the catalyst will be the reconstruction of a new train station, removal of the rail yards, and a rework of the whole public transport interchange. When that actually occurs, that's when you'll see the major development occurring. And what this document sets up to do is establish the framework where that could proceed. Now, it is very interesting, that whole precinct, which is the only area which changes from the earlier one, is actually in the control of the state government. And so the state government will in itself be the catalyst for what occurs here. The private sector may end up with some joint venture role with a VicTrack or others, or level crossing authorities. But essentially, it will be the state government that determines what happens on the west side of Main Road. In terms of the balance of the activity centre of Eltham around its commercial heart, as I said, broadly, a lot of it has already been redeveloped under the previous scheme, and some of the problems that have been created as a result of that scheme, which I think we start to deal with here in terms of setbacks, in terms of roof lines, and some of the height issues. So there are a lot of benefits in this document. We'll wait and see what the document comes back, having listened to all of those submissions tonight. I know the officers have been taking notes. I had about a 5-hour session with officers on it earlier in the week, and I commend the work which is going forward. Because broadly what we're seeking to do is improve the current activity centre. If you want to rewrite and start it again, that's another piece of work. But this was always an upgrade of what was the basis of it, and recognising that the document sits within a state government planning framework. This is just not us sitting around a table going, what would we like to have happen in Eltham? That's not how it works. We're set parameters by the state and we work within those parameters. So tonight's thinking is really just about the submissions. We'll have the proper conversation about how all this plays out in a future document that we see towards the end of the month. I commend the resolution, councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Rankin.
I really don't have too much more to comment. I'll reserve it for next for the OCM, but I'd just like to thank the councillor, the officers for their time and effort. I've spent some time this afternoon on the phone with him, clarifying a number of areas. I'd like to thank the submitters, particularly for this evening and their time and their effort that they've gone to, and look forward to the conversation at the OCM. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rankin. Councillor Perkins.
Mayor, can I just request the indulgence of the mover and the seconder to make a minor change, and that's to bring the report back to the August Ordinary Council meeting. It's to change that one word from July to August. I can move an amendment, but I'm broadly concerned about the very short timeline to turn this document around.
Councillor Clark, Councillor Rankin. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Yes, Mayor, I don't support that. And the reason I don't support that is the officers have been, the officers have had the advantage of all of the submissions for the last few weeks. So to be frank, most of what's been said tonight is reiterating what they've already got in writing. There are a few issues at the edges that you could pick up out tonight, but there's not a dramatic shift from what they've already, and they're working very hard towards this outcome. Now, if what we see in July is not acceptable, and we think more.
Yeah, I don't know where you got the clock. I don't know where you got the clock running, Councillor Clark. It's not. This is not part of the debate. I asked whether or not you're willing to.
No. Well, I'll wait for the debate if you wish to move it as an amendment. But yeah, I don't. See
okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other councillors wish to speak? If not, we'll put it to the vote. So all those in.
Hang on, I'll move an amendment.
Sorry, you are. Sorry. Yeah. I misunderstood.
Look, I'd like to move the amendment. It's to change dot point number 2 from a report to be presented at the July Ordinary Council meeting to a report presented to the August Ordinary Council meeting. You're muted, Mayor. Mayor, you're still muted.
I'm no. I've got a new laptop. My other one died. I'm just waiting for staff to get it up on the screen for you.
It just changes July to August. It's not.
I know.
Hard. I think we know what he means.
Sorry.
I'm a simple man.
And a seconder, please. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Jemerick. Over to you, Councillor Perkins.
So really, in light of what we've heard tonight, tonight is the official conclusion of the public submissions and the consultation process. There's been a recurring theme that community groups from ECAG, I believe the Historical Society there. There's a view they haven't had enough time to consider it. That's one point of view. I'm sort of concerned about the very quick turnaround that officers have to make. Still some relatively dramatic changes to this document to get it to a point where it will be adopted by council. And the opportunity for really councillors to be further briefed and consulted on those changes and get a broad sense of comfort with the document going forward. I don't think we can do that. I don't think officers have the capacity to do that in a week and to adequately brief councillors and have everyone comfortable that the community and councillor views have been incorporated. So I think it's appropriate that we hold it back until the August OCM. That's the basis of the amendment. I don't think it's a big ask. It's certainly takes the pressure off everyone a little bit more. I think it also gives would reassure community. So that's my amendment. I'll look for support from council. Obviously, we haven't got a support at the moment from the mover, Councillor Clark, and we'll hear more of that in a moment, I'd say. But I hope the majority of council will see that there is no harm in giving officers a bit more time and councillors a bit more time to consider the really big ramifications that this document has to Eltham. And I'd be arguing a similar point for Diamond Creek. So I think the similarity, there's many more similarities between Eltham and Diamond Creek than there are differences. And really, I'm foreshadowing that we need to just give give ourselves and give officers just a little bit more time to finesse this document. So I thank you for the indulgence of letting me move that amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Demerit.
I agree with Councillor Perkins. I think not all of us had the luxury of having 5 hours with officers such as Councillor Clark has, going over the document. It would be good to, once we get it back, to go through it thoroughly. I don't see that there's any rush. It's been worked on. Amendments will be made, and to give people time to read it, to have discussions and come back in a month's time, I don't think it's going to hurt. So I fully support Councillor Perkins' motion. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Demerit. Other councillors who wish to speak? Councillor Brooker.
Mayor, can I just ask a question before, just to cut through?
Yeah, sure.
My question is to the officers, to Director of Planning.
Just one moment. Get Rosemary. And she's here and nearly unmuted.
So my question to Rosa is, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I'm not writing the report. So, you know, do I really mind which month it comes to? Not really. I just want to get it done. So from your perspective, my question is, are you ready to be prepared for July, or is there a substantial benefit for you, and would you be requesting a move to August? Because I'm influenced by that outcome, not by Councillor Perkins' failure to read the document earlier.
Thank you, Peter Clark. And through the Mayor, officers have always planned to have this item go up to the July ordinary council meeting. And we're working to that time frame, and we're able to accommodate those timeframes easily. If there's an extra month, then that just gives us a little bit more time to just write the documents, prepare the documents.
Thank you.
Councillor Brooker.
Thank you. Look, just a couple of things. I'll be supporting the amendment, but I would actually go a little bit further than just August, to be honest. But I do think just a month ago, we had the economic development strategy, and that process fell down. Councillors did not get that document in time to assess it at a briefing as it should have done, as they should have been able to do. So no, I think certainly I would look at August. I would go longer. I certainly think in the broad scheme of things, when something lasts 16 years, as the last document has done, there's no particular need to push through now. I do think there's two points I'd make. One, 36 submissions or whatever the number is, does, I think, reflect a failure from the consultation point of view. Now, how we can do that better is always the $64 question. But clearly, if there's 36, that I think is less than satisfactory. How you get more is, I'm not sure how. But however, what we've done hasn't been successful to only get 36 submissions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brooker. Councillor Ashton.
This emphasis on 36 submissions, I think that's incorrect. I think, we're looking at the whole of the Eltham Chamber of Commerce and Industry. That represents more than 36 people. We're looking at all owners and occupiers of land in the Eltham Major Activity Centre, including residential areas. Now, there may be apathy around, but I don't think there's been a miscommunication. We no longer have a local paper. Those people that are interested, it also went out, we had a database of community members who'd registered for notifications. There's a whole lot of people out there that get notified every time we're doing something. So I I don't necessarily agree there hasn't been adequate community consultation. I think that people, perhaps aren't particularly interested. With regard to having more time, I don't think that would mean we'd go out for additional submissions. I think it would be perhaps that we could work more on some of the areas that have come up and been discussed tonight. So I think, it would be to give officers more time rather than to engage a lot more than we have. So that would be my view, but I'll think about it. I'll hear what other people have got to say.
Councillor Rankin.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of questions to Rosa, if I may, just to be crystal clear. When did the consultation of this process commence?
So through the Mayor, the consultation for this process started last year, and it's been a two-phased consultation process. So the first initial period was really to seek the community's views as to how they use the centre, what they like about the centre, what they don't like about the centre, to start to understand what the community wanted out of this structure plan. All that. Sorry?
How did we communicate to the public or to the community about these consultation
so there was
events or how did we communicate?
There was a range of different techniques used, but again, people were notified through our various media channels. Participate was used, and notification was sent out to community groups and the like.
It went out to
a lot of people,
or thousands of people, potentially.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So in the last 7 weeks, we've had this we've gone back out to the public. We've invited them to come back, and we've heard from a handful of speakers tonight. You've advised that your timeline and deadline has always been to the July OCM. And apart from pushing it out to August, which then almost goes into our caretaker period shortly thereafter, there's really not any other real benefit in delaying it to August.
Through the Mayor, yes. Our timelines were always to the July Ordinary Council meeting, and noting that in that timeline we did an extended period of consultation from the 4 to the 7 weeks extension to cater for the fact that we were in a state of emergency. So, and giving people more time to provide their feedback to council. I guess the process has been one that's not just been the last couple of months, but one that's been the better part of a year to 18 months of going along this journey with various points of check-in with yourselves as councillors, and of course the community, to provide that ample opportunity. The figure of 36 submissions, is not alarming. I guess for us, it's not the number of submissions, it's what do the submissions say to us? What can we take from those to improve our work and to make the structure plan a better plan? So yeah, for us, it's about the content and about that, what changes we can make from that content of the submissions received.
Thank you, Rosa. If I might have my 3 minutes now, Mayor.
Fire away, Councillor Rankin.
Sorry, Mayor. It's not often I do speak, but I think, councillors, tonight we've heard very clearly from the director of that department that really the community has had ample time to be able to put their submission forward. Unlike the land sales that we always keep going back to, I think that we are a very open and transparent council. We give our community time to be able to come back with their submissions, to be able to engage, to be able to talk. I've had a number of calls over the last few weeks talking to me about it, and I've referred them back to the officers. And I really think that by pushing it out, really, Councillor Perkins, I won't be supporting your amendment on this one. I'm not sure why you really want to push it out. The community's had ample time. let's just get on with it. And the officers had planned to be able to deliver this by the July Ordinary Council meeting anyway. So, sorry, you won't have my support on this on the amendment.
Councillor Clark, have you spoken? Oh, originally, yeah, you haven't.
Just a question for Rosa.
Certainly. Just
to follow up, Rosa, I was a bit confused by some of your answer there. You sort of suggested the consultation went back to last year. And I'm reading the papers, and my very strong recollection was that, Council endorsed the draft structure plan on the 25th of February this year. And the first thing that public saw of this draft document was on the 10th of March. So I just don't, really want councillors to be confused, thinking that there's been a longer consultation process than what the report bears out. That the first time the public saw this document was the 10th of March. Can you just confirm that for me?
Yep, through the Mayor. You're right. The first time they saw this current version of the draft structure plan was at that particular time. Prior to that, as I alluded before, it was a period of consultation to really provide officers with feedback from the community as to how they use the centre, what they like about the centre. That then informed the draft that went out on public consultation this year.
Yeah, so there wasn't a previous version of this draft, you're sort of talking about this current version of the draft. This is the first draft that the community have seen.
This is the draft that the community has seen.
Draft number one.
The first time that they've been able to provide feedback to inform the draft, though, and that's the difference.
So if we go through a process where we talk to targeted stakeholders or whatever, that's not really consultation as we understand it in the consultation framework. When you're trying to build a document, consultation is, correct me if I'm wrong, but the statutory consultation that we're thinking about in planning documents is when you put out a draft document for public feedback and review, and that process is just concluding tonight.
Through the Mayor, all aspects of the consultation process inform the draft of the structure plan. And that I guess you can't diminish, the value that, a submission earlier on provides to inform the document that is provided for community feedback at the end of the day. So,
but as a general ratepayer, that's the first time the broad community have had the chance to look at the draft document, and that was on the 10th of March.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Can I just clarify a few questions, Rosa, while you were there? Reading the document here, it tells me that you first presented the plan to certain focus groups way back in, and I think it started from July 2018. That's what I'm reading. That was when the first round of public consultation started, which was to inform the structure plan review, and that was over a 3-month period in 2018. And I just wanted you to confirm that, firstly.
So,
correct?
Yes, that first phase was really just to talk through how do we start to develop the draft, the final draft that people would be able to view. And that was that process that I was talking to. So those focus groups would provide that feedback, and the consultants took that as well as the officers, and we then were able to start to put together the draft that went out on formal exhibition.
Right, and you actually did notify in writing all of the owners and occupiers of land in the whole of the entire activity centre, including the residential areas, all of the proposed inclusions in the centre, and then you had some stakeholders like DELP and Melbourne Water, etc.
Yes.
You had the entire Eltham Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And then you also had Council's database of all the community members who've registered as being interested in the project. And it actually goes on. People can read the document. When we did still have the leader, it was placed in there.
Yes.
It's on website, social media, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So for people to say that we haven't done every single thing we can actually to get people's views on this, I find quite extraordinary. So I just wanted you to confirm that I wasn't getting it wrong. And yes, we mightn't have had a draft, but you have to start somewhere listening to people and listening to what they want. So I just wanted to clarify that. Now,
Yes.
we'll go back to Peter Clark. And I'd suggest you might just like to stay there for a few minutes because councillors might have some more questions for you.
I have no more questions of Rosa, but look, my commentary is pretty much picking up from where you left. I thought Councillor Rankin, frankly, covered it off fairly well. I've lived this now for nearly 18 months. This has been a long process. This isn't happening overnight.
Correct.
We started off with a whole bunch of meetings with community groups early on. Councillor Perkins was at some of them because we do some of them one week or earlier in the night and then do the second part on Diamond Creek Activity Centre. So, you know, I've been out talking to all of the traders. I've spoken with the Eltham Chamber of Commerce endlessly on it. I've certainly spoken to no shortage of residents, and I've given it a tremendous focus right through the Bridge Street industrial area. And the reason for that being is a lot of the other submitters didn't. A lot of the focus has been the bit where people go shopping. And so I've spent quite a bit of time talking to all of those groups. And, you know, Howard Turner is a perfect example tonight of, frankly, a trader or a businessman in that area who's frustrated we've taken so long to get to tonight. His perfect view would be, and I can tell you there's a bunch of other property owners and businesses through that area had wished we'd done this before Christmas of last year and got on with it so that we'd sorted out our after problems. I know we're in VCAT in August on another matter, a strategic issue that would have been sorted out had we done this by August, but, you know, we're still dealing with that, and that sits around the second home VCAT determination. So there are a lot in the community who are just waiting to get this to occur. Equally, even some of those submitters tonight, maybe I might argue reluctantly, but nonetheless, some of them are appreciative of some of the changes that we're going to make with respect to areas, particularly around the Circulatory Road area. We've got greater setbacks, better clarity on measurements, strengthening our positioning going to VCAT. Equally, there's been a lot of work put into this document, which didn't come out in the submissions tonight, but a lot of work put into this document around the finishes and the nature and areas of glass to materials that is going to occur through the centre. So there's a lot of people actually waiting for us to actually deal with it and get on with it. So having said all of that, if what we see in July, and I'm confident that the staff, given they've had all these submissions now for some considerable time, will be able to meet that deadline. But if with what we see in July, we're still not happy with in some way, there is no requirement for us to adopt it. We might, the resolution tonight simply says we're going to adopt the submissions, and then the officers will complete their further review of all of this and their report and submit to us for the OCM in July for our consideration. And if we think we've got it right, we'll adopt it. If we don't, we'll do something else. And you know, let's stick to that time frame and not start to push out things for no inordinate reason. We'll have the conversation about Diamond Creek a little bit later on, but you know, I think we've had enough on this tonight. We should just stick to our time frames, get on with it, let the staff
Thank you, Councillor
continue
Clark.
their good work.
Did you get a right of reply? Yeah, right of reply? No, sorry, not an amendment. Just checking, Councillor Perkins. I thought you might have another go. So now we need to vote. All those in favour of Councillor Perkins' amendment, please raise your hand. All those against? And that is not carried. So we now revert back to the original motion. Yeah, so Peter Clark, Councillor Clark and Councillor Rankin have spoken. So I'm opening up the floor to other councillors who wish to add anything more to what we've already heard. If not, we'll put the original motion to the vote. Sorry, Councillor Clark.
No, I was voting.
Oh, sorry, I hadn't got there.
I was trying to indicate that I wish to speak.
Yes, so I asked for people to put their hands up and you didn't, so that's why I was moving on. Over to you, Councillor Perkins.
I think you cut out. You must be having some IT issues. So we heard from a number of submitters tonight, and broadly representing the community, and they put that it wasn't why I was arguing for an extension to bring the report forward from officers. It was really quite different. It was really to give councillors a bit more time to be properly briefed on the amended document, the document that should be largely amended and significantly amended as a result of community consultation. That community consultation that finishes tonight. You know, the community can rightly ask, if the officers have already prepared, you know, the next version of the document, well, why are they being called to submit? It's like we've put the, you know, the community could rightfully wonder, have we put the horse before the cart before the horse? So I think it's appropriate to give another few weeks, you know, for councillors to be really assured that community concerns have been incorporated into this new document. Now I've seen a draft. I'm flagging that it's going to be significantly different from what was put out the draft consultation. I think there's some more changes that need to be made. I think to try to turn this all around really in the next 7 days is not possible, and we're not going to get the best outcome. You know, Natalie Duffy spoke well. She talked about it, that it underpins what Eltham would look like in the future. You know, next 10, 20, 30 years. I don't know what the hurry is. You know, she's concerned about only 36 submitters from 15,000 people. You know, that's to do with the pandemic, you know, and the ability of people to be actively engaged. Like, at least the Eltham process, you did have one pop-up session where you actually got to speak face-to-face with ratepayers. Well, that didn't happen in Diamond Creek, but we'll get to Diamond Creek before too long. You know, Lindsay Prunuto described the process as fundamentally flawed, and that went back to really the council plan. And yeah, it does. It is a bit scary when you read it now, and you look at what this plan was based on, and it was based on reviewing existing precinct structure plans within activity centres to encourage investment and development. Very narrow focus that really doesn't represent what, you know, the broader population in Eltham would like to see in their activity centre. This process is just as important to Eltham, and the Diamond Creek process is just as important to Diamond Creek as the Greenwich Management Plan was to the rural ratepayers and the rural ward councillors. So I'm a bit flabbergasted that we couldn't see our way through to giving at least councillors a bit more time to be briefed on and you know, be really reassured and make sure that we've got the changes into the documents that we want. But we want to ram this through. As a result, I won't be supporting it tonight. You know, I'll vote against it. I don't think we're going in the right direction at the moment, and I think we're trying to just, you know, this timeline that officers have set. That's what councillors have to abide by.
Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Brooker.
Yes, I think that's right. I do think that we are going, I mean, there's a lot to like about the plan, and Councillor Clark has talked about the setbacks and the certainty and so on that would provide. But the problem is now the councillor input is going to be restricted. We've got now a week to get our own input into the plan and then to have it discussed between us. That is not a sufficient amount of time to achieve what I would like to see in terms of changes. And I do think, you know, there's a whole lot of other more broad conversations you could have about bike paths and so on that has been mentioned tonight, that I don't think would be adequately addressed in 1 week. So I think the best thing to do is to give ourselves that extra amount of time for councillors to go through the document, to make their own amendments, which I tend to sort of put through to officers, get feedback from them, kick them around, and come up with a better plan. There's the built form outcomes are good. The setbacks we've got are superior to what currently exists, but we need to get the total package correct. That is the challenge. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brooker. Councillor Ashton.
Look, I really didn't hear anything from the submitters tonight that we're not already either across or aware of. And I think when Councillor Dumerick accuses people of having the luxury of spending lots of hours working on this, as a councillor that's also done that on various projects, it's not a luxury, it's something you do. And it's something you do so that you get to know what people want, what they're thinking. And I think that this plan hasn't just been, we've been working on it with regard to changes all the time. And, the submitters have confirmed some of the things that we needed to clarify. And such as the definitions of native, Indigenous or exotic. And they are things that we perhaps need to be more prescriptive about. I know that. But again, basing a plan on encouraging investment and development in an activity centre, I don't think is unusual. I agree we have to take in, the environmental and the social, but this is an activity centre. It's not a national park. So as a council that needs to get rates from businesses, encourage businesses that employ local people and provide an activity centre where people from everywhere, not just rural areas, can go and shop and get their services. I think, if we don't go to Eltham, where do we go? We go to Diamond Creek. So they've got to be able to offer us what we need. Otherwise, our dollar goes out to other shopping centres. So, yeah, it's not horrific to me that we want to encourage investment and development and to do it in a responsible, artistic or creative way with a bit of vision. I know the vision was mocked, but I actually thought that vision was quite good, and it did capture, let's move away from some of the stagnation that we've had. The visions of the past haven't done Eltham particularly well, so let's try and do something in the future that tidies it up and gets it going. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ashton. I think everybody's spoken, so back to Councillor Clark for right of reply.
Thank you, Mayor. 4.5 months councillors have had to make comment to the officers. 4.5 months since we saw the first draft. If you haven't read it by now, I'd suggest, given we heard from submitters tonight, I'm not quite sure how you would have been in a position to be able to listen and understand what they were referring to. There are substantial documents which were submitted as well from those submitters for us to have read tonight. And I got to say, from some councils, I'm getting more and more the sense that they actually haven't read the document properly yet, so they now want some time. There is, to be honest, if you're going to start taking Natalie Duffy as the expert on community consultation, forgive me, but she would have given us a totally different outcome on the Eltham North playground because we got it totally wrong and had to start again, and it was appalling. That was her advice. Yet we got it right, and the community listened and got it and love what we've got. So I'm not going to be starting to be lectured to by somebody who tells me about community consultation and doesn't listen to our own community. There are lots of things that people did say tonight, but again, some of them may not have read it. There's lots of good stuff in this document already about the bike paths. And our submitter's commentary is already in there about that. He may not have picked up those particular sections, but it is, all there. I look forward to seeing what the officers come out with in July. And as I said earlier on tonight, if we find what we see in July is a document that we want to make amendment to, the first option is, given we've spent 2.5 hours just listening to submissions and just resolving to accept them, we can spend hours on amendments to change the document as we wish, or indeed, if we needed to defer it till August or defer it for further work. That's our choice. But until we see the document back as the next draft, I would simply encourage councillors to read the document and make any other comments to officers so that it's reflective of everybody's views.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. So we still have to vote. So all those in favour for the original amendment?
The motion.
All those against? Sorry, motion. All those against? Carried. I presume somebody will want to call a division? No? Yes? No? Very well. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to
division. Division. Thank you. Division.
You're not hearing me, Councillor Perkins.
Why not
encourage? There's a delay. There's a delay.
Why encourage them?
There's a delay.
All those in favour of the motion, raise your hands. Councillor Clark, Councillor Egan, Councillor Rankin, Councillor Ashton. All those against? Councillor Perkins, Councillor Demerit, Councillor Brooker, and that is carried. Thank you. Our next item is 01820, and our first submitter is Natalie Duffy.
The first item was quick.
And we'll welcome Natalie back into the room and get her off mute. You there, Natalie?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
We can hear you.
Can you?
You know the routine, so fire away.
Sorry, I'm just having a problem with my computer. If you could bear with me 1 second before you start the time clock, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yep, no problems. Just let me know when you're ready.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, I'm not quite sure what's happening, but I will proceed with what I wanted to say.
Well, we can hear you at the moment, so if there's any problems, we can stop.
Okay,
fire away.
Thank you for letting me speak again. I think from the comments that I've just heard from Councillor Clark, he would prefer that I don't speak. I'm grateful to be able to speak about the Diamond Creek Structure Plan. I live in Eltham North and I regularly go between Eltham and Diamond Creek townships for shopping, leisure and sport for my family. Diamond Creek has its own character. Like Eltham, it's not Greensborough, Hawthorne or Doncaster. Diamond Creek is not Eltham, nor is it Rosanna. The vision for the Diamond Creek Activity Centre needs to help Diamond Creek retain its character and be enhanced for the future. Again, I'd like to see more attention given to protecting the way we live and connect with the land. I believe it's important we retain a link with the past when working to build the future in all the communities in Nillumbik, and I would like to see meaningful acknowledgement to Wurundjeri, and this plan doesn't propose this. I'm not in favour of 4- and 5-storey development in Diamond Creek, and I want to see this community protected from inappropriate development as much as I want to see this for Eltham. I agree with the possibility of a sky rail to remove the level crossing and have advocated for this to the Minister for Transport. I'm not in favour of a transport-oriented development with residential above it. It's so important that council makes decisions that protect our natural assets and our open spaces and Indigenous vegetation. I'm not confident that there's been sufficient consultation on the Diamond Creek plan. 43 submissions for a population of 10,000 people in Diamond Creek and 36 submissions for a population of 18,000 in Eltham is not a basis on which council can accept this plan and think that you're really representing the views of the people. And yes, I did hear Rosa talk about what happened in 2018. And I even think that 200 people is not a valid base for something that you're planning on such an important move towards the future for the vision of these communities. Yes, the council officers have had access to the views of a very small number of people, and I still don't see how you can vote on this without the community being heard. I agree with Councillor Demerit and Councillor Perkins that there are similarities, and I don't think the consultation has hit the mark. And Councillor Clark, I don't agree with you. We've just got to get this done. That concerns me as the community has to live with the outcomes of your vote. I agree with Councillor Brooker's statement in the last comments about this process is exactly the same, that there's been a failure here and the consultation has not been successful. Council needs to work out an improved way to engage with the community. The communication has been flawed and not worked. It might have been a topic that's top of mind for councillors, but it's not the case for the majority of people in the community. And I represent the quiet majority tonight. I agree with Councillor Ashton that you need to be responsible. And I'm not lecturing council about community consultation, and I take offence to Peter Clark's belittling comments of me regarding the Eltham North Adventure Playground. I'm really furious. You treat people really poorly. Council's meant to work for the community and it's meant to be easy. And you make it very difficult for us to even want to engage with you. This is really awful of you, the way that you've treated me tonight, Peter Clark, and it's not the first time. You do this to people all the time.
Thank you, Natalie. I'm sorry
know
to cut
what
you
you're
off
talking
there.
about, Councillor Clark, and I'm happy to take questions. I'm actually really angry. This is not the way council should engage with community. I don't have to be here wasting my night, putting hours away from my family.
Who would like to ask, excuse me, Councillor Clark, who would like to ask Natalie a question? Councillor Clark.
Natalie, thank you for your commentary. Equally, my commentary was reflective of the somewhat terse commentary you gave me around Eltham North Playground, which fortunately we got the right outcome for the whole community. But let me just deal with Diamond Creek. I just want to ask you about Skyrail. You indicated that you support Skyrail as an outcome for Diamond Creek.
I support the removal of the level crossing, and I would prefer Skyrail as to a channel or like a cutting into the ground.
So my question about that would be two things. Do you think that is a broadly supported community view in Diamond Creek? The second question is, would you be disappointed if Skyrail was not included in this submission as an outcome?
I don't know if that's broad. I haven't asked people in Diamond Creek. I'm going on my experience being in the traffic and having to wait for the trains at this intersection. I know that the railway line is a divider to the community. It disconnects people there at the moment. So I think Skyrail would be good. I also think that it's a good inclusion to have this in this vision for Diamond Creek. But looking at it being part of 4 and 5 story development and imposing on the view and the vegetation that is much appreciated by people as we are in Diamond Creek and as we drive through it, I think there are two things that you need to look at here. One is, 4 to 5 story development for the sake of it because you've got a planning zoning that allows that shouldn't mean that that's the way to go. And so even with these plans...
My question was, and I think you've answered it, that you would be disappointed that if this didn't include a Skyrail type outcome. Am I correct in that?
I'm happy to see the vision for this. It's up to the community. And that's where I think the community haven't had an adequate opportunity for both Eltham and Diamond Creek to see what you're proposing.
Do you think, it's a very simple question, do you think if this didn't include a Skyrail type outcome, it would be disappointing? In your personal view?
No, I agree that having the Skyrail in it is a good thing.
Thank you. That's all I was trying to understand. Thank you.
Any other questions for Natalie from other councillors, please? Councillor Perkins.
Natalie, just from the outset, just thank you very much for your ongoing efforts. Look, I know it is difficult. Like councillors, we receive an allowance. We're paid to be here, so we have to be here. But disrespect shown towards community members who are out there doing the right thing. Leaving their family to present at a council meeting. Other people that have spoken, they don't represent us. Individual views.
Excuse me, Councillor Clark.
I'm very thankful for you and others who do actually take the time
could you ask a question
to submit about the Skyrail. I think, Natalie, to really put that into context, I think where Councillor Clark was going was he knows that he's already seen a version of the new plan, as have I. Officers have already done extensive work on it, and it makes no mention of the Skyrail. It's put back to really someone else's issue, state government. But broadly, what do you think the people of Diamond Creek, do you think they appreciate the notion of 5-story buildings and increasing of residential and commercial buildings, increasing of density without the requisite public transport? And
we do want transport solutions, but I don't think people want 4 and 5 story development in Diamond Creek. There aren't anywhere, there's nowhere that is, to my knowledge, higher than 2 stories at the moment. To suddenly plonk 4 and 5 story development in at Diamond Creek is completely out of place. It's out of character. And we want to be able to have townships that are unique. People come to live in Nillumbik for, all of the things that we've got to offer. And part of that is that we are different to the rest of Melbourne, that we are the lungs of Melbourne, whether we are in the green wedge in a rural sense, or whether we believe that we're part of the green wedge living in an urban township. We want to see the trees, we want to be connected with the lake nature, and we want to have life living in Nillumbik as easy, not as something that's made more difficult. So, you know, I really congratulate you on looking at the plans and trying to look at what we can do for the future. That's really important. If we don't look for the future, we stay stagnant. But it's about engaging with the community so that we all know what we're up for. So I didn't know about 4 and 5 story development in Diamond Creek. I don't know if there was a previous plan that had that, in the same way that I didn't know there was a previous plan in Eltham. And I think this is the problem. Most of us don't know. So whose job is it to inform us? Is it council's job? And I think yes, when it comes to big decisions like this. And I don't think that, you know, I don't think that the way that you've communicated this to us has actually enhanced the knowledge base for all of the people in these areas, because when I look at the people that I've talked to this afternoon about did you know, they all said no. So, you know, I have people that I can talk to in Diamond Creek, and I'll do that tomorrow to say, did you know?
Thanks, Natalie.
Natalie, do you think
I don't want to cut you off.
Natalie, just a further question. Do you think, you know, the retention and the planting of Indigenous canopy trees in Diamond Creek is just as important to the people of Diamond Creek and those that use the Diamond Creek Activity Centre as it is to those in Eltham?
I think it's enormously important. And to me, this is a particularly, difficult topic to talk about, because I've actually raised it with council back in May about the plantings that council's undertaken that are of exotic nature, you know, at the Adventure Playground. Recently, there were plantings of, you know, ginkgo trees from Japan, olive trees from the Mediterranean. There are leucadendrums from South Africa. You know, we have all of these introduced species into a place that is right next to the creek. And, you know, we're looking at a Pick My project that I was able to be successful in getting $174,000 for our community, and looking at orangery acknowledgement and Indigenous planting, and at the same location that the council's working with us to try and do that, you're planting non-Indigenous plants. And, you know, I've written to the council about what's happening in Diamond Creek at the fabulous new Diamond Creek playground that's being built, asking if this play space can be protected from being overrun with exotic plants. Can you assure the community that you're going to be planting with Indigenous plants? I cycled by on the bike trail today. This is a good thing about COVID. It's gotten me on a push bike. I haven't been on a push bike for 13 years, since before I was pregnant, but I'm loving being out riding on the trails. And I really like that I can ride between Eltham and Diamond Creek, and I can do shopping. I've gone there to buy things. I've never done that before. I've only done it by car. So this, looking at the vision of how we connect our communities, is really important. But you're talking specifically here about Indigenous plants, and I think that that's what the green wedge is all about. I don't want to see, you know, lipstick red trees. I want to see native vegetation, and that's what grows.
Going to go on.
At the Adventure
Thank you,
Playground, just
Natalie.
to finish, one last point before I can go. At the Adventure Playground, with the non-Indigenous planting that took place by council over the period when we were in lockdown over
the first time,
the Anzac to early May period, the majority of those plants that were planted have since died, and it's only, what, 6-7 weeks. So there's a benefit in planting Indigenous plants. You know, they have been in this area for many, many years. And
thanks, Natalie. Oh, we do get your point. And I think part of the reason they mightn't have survived is because council staff have had to go and work at home, and there's been other issues.
No, it's not that, Karen. It was inappropriate plant.
Well, I'm happy to have a conversation with you, and I'm sure Councillor Jameri gives us the ward councillor, we can have a chat about that offline. So are there any more questions for Natalie from other councillors? If not, thanks very much.
An apology from Peter Clark for the way that he spoke to me earlier in this meeting.
I'll talk to you.
And I would
It's not something we can take on air in front of the public.
I'm happy to second.
In public, but he can't apologise for that.
I'm happy to second that.
Did not speak to you.
You did.
Beg your pardon?
Let's move on.
Peter. You know,
I'm sorry, Natalie. We'll have a conversation.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Natalie. Thank you. We'll now move to our next speaker. In fact, the rest of the night is spoken through Carl by the CEO. Our first speaker, I'll just read the names out and we'll go just on the next one. Chris Stockton.
Chris writes, I have been a member of the Nillumbik community for over 25 years now, and I have major concerns with this proposal and how it wishes to remove the key charm of Diamond Creek. 4- and 5-story buildings are not a reflection of the town or the people who inhabit it. Diamond Creek holds an extremely unique character of community that is not present in surrounding suburbs. This proposal contradicts itself in many ways, one of which stating in the objectives for the town being to retain the semi-rural township character of Diamond Creek by clustering development and activity, page 23, and to ensure development retains and enhances the township character with medium-scale buildings, also on page 23. Neither of these quotes hold any true representation of the town or the community's perception of future growth. Instead, it shows a council that is more concerned with development and having a higher amount of ratepayers. Suggestions of 2-story straight walls with a 0-metre setback, page 25, has no place in a town that prides itself on its open spaces and sense of disconnect from the busy city life so many endure during the working week. This is further highlighted in the proposal showing no upgrades to the road infrastructure of Main Hurstbridge Road. This is a road that has remained single lane for over 170 years, and this draft suggests adding over 300 dwellings in the town centre, building the new development up to the boundary of the current footpaths and not adding any additional lanes. This is ironic given that the proposal itself highlights that this area is some of the state's most bushfire vulnerable land, page 27. Not only would this cause a major safety risk for the community with all surrounding communities that rely on this road, it would ensure that the road will never be able to be widened in the future. The report also states additional car parking is not considered necessary, page 26 in Diamond Creek. A rather outlandish statement of adding additional car parking along Elizabeth Street, which would barely be more than single digits, as an attempt to overshadow the removal of all car parking at the shopping centres of Coles and IGA is of major concern. The draft not only outlining a requirement for parking if 4- to 5-story buildings are erected, but instead stating with car parking either provided in basements or behind the building, page 24. Is this a suggestion of parking on the surrounding streets? I'm fully aware that Diamond Creek must grow. Change is part of life. I believe most people in the community are excited by its future growth, but this must be done in a way that emulates the town's unique character and the community's expectations.
Well done. Our next
3
submitter,
minutes, exactly.
Brian and Janice Smythe.
Objections to proposed changes, precinct 6. 1. This will create additional congestion on Main Hurstbridge Road, which is already heavily congested and is far too narrow to cope with the additional traffic and parking that multi-story apartments constructed in this area will create. There is no street parking, which will cause problems in all surrounding side streets and possibly the school parking. 2. Traffic exiting the existing properties have trouble carrying out right-hand turns, so adjoining side streets are already being used as roundabouts. 3. Additional traffic from multi-story buildings will escalate this problem, which is already dangerous in Gregg Street for children that play in the street and commute to school. 4. Privacy for all existing properties, especially Gregg Street, will be a major problem. The multi-story apartments would need to be constructed so occupants could not view into our private properties, with no view from windows, balconies, or car parks. Windows would have to be frosted and balconies would need to be screened. 5. Current plans for the railway line does not seem to be a solution to the traffic congestion, but will only add to the problem. 6. A solution which would alleviate the bulk of these problems would be to construct these multi-story buildings on a more suitable site along Main Hurstbridge Road, north of the college near the ambulance depot. The council's proposal contradicts its own objectives, strategies and vision statement. Council states that their objectives, strategies and vision for this area are development that integrates with existing residential area, new developments to present a predominantly residential appearance in respect to form, heights, setbacks, landscape and complete privacy. Existing low-scale residential to the south area, number 6. Development will reflect the rural setting of Diamond Creek. For the well-being of the existing residents of Diamond Creek, we respectfully request that you review the proposal for section 6. That's the submission.
Our next submission is Adjunct Billy Proprietary Limited.
We strenuously object to this Diamond Creek Activity Centre structure plan. None of our objections or suggestions have been incorporated. We reserve all our rights. In fairness, please abandon the new structure plan until the suddenly abandoned housing strategy has been replaced. We question the validity and fairness of a new structure plan that is not informed by a new housing strategy. If this does not occur, we ask Council to request the Minister to appoint an independent panel to hear all the community objections of those who have likewise not been incorporated. As per our full submission dated 27th of April 2020 and submitted on the 29th of April, our objections include Precinct 1, Chute Street. 5.1 of draft is the original historic township. It is or was well endowed with infrastructure capacity for major expansion and growth, including that for its strategic planned residential growth directly to its north to the original Diamond Creek boundary. This includes the land held by the company. The crux to all planning is utility infrastructure, water, sewerage and drainage. The unbalanced nature of the plan, Chute Street and the land around it has again been further demoted to a secondary retail node. This will prevent it from developing to its entitled highest and best use potential. The viability, vitality and identity of the original Diamond Creek Township must be improved and enhanced, not disadvantaged for the benefit of the newly expanded retail and commercial precincts east of the railway. Such impact is against all planning principles. All references to Chute Street being a secondary retail node must be removed. It must be included on an equal footing with the new town centre on Main Hurstbridge Road. All policies and strategies must reflect that this is not further separate Chute Street. In all respects, the draft has neglected Chute Street. It is much more than just a commercial strip. Chute Street does not deserve to be demoted in effect to an insignificant neighbourhood centre. The major, not minor changes to Precinct 3 and 5. The plan needs further consultation as it has been negatively impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Public consultations were cancelled and we feel this has compromised the normal process of public involvement. As this is a new process, we expect all aspects of it should be open for public consideration. This includes full, open and transparent review of the past, current mistakes, inequities, injustices that were overlooked previously. And that is the submission.
Thank you. We next have Gillis Snap and then Esther Snap.
Submission, I reserve all my rights. Please also refer to all my previous submissions this year concerning all new strategies and policies of Council, as I believe them to all be interrelated. I object to the plan and ask for it to be abandoned for the following reasons. It should follow a new housing strategy and not simply be informed by an outdated version after the recent abandonment of the new housing strategy. Consultation has been negatively impacted by COVID-19. Normal processes, e.g. public consultations and public availability of all studies used to inform the strategy have been either cancelled or in the case of the studies unavailable. Without the above, making a meaningful submission has been difficult, in particular being able to assess if my property interests are being impacted. This includes utility infrastructure for the new town centre. It has significantly altered the direction of strategic growth in Diamond Creek without the equal inclusion and consideration of the whole township. We believe that all landowners in Diamond Creek should have been notified in writing, and not just those in the activity centre. It will create an unbalanced and unfair version for the future of the whole town at the expense of older long-term investors. Contrary to the officer's report, major and not minor changes are being made within this new plan. Precinct 3, formerly the industrial area, has now become Commercial 3, and the same change has been made to Precinct 5. Increased building heights have also been added. These changes will further negatively impact Chute Street. I am alarmed by the removal of the Diamond Creek Primary School from the study area. What does this foreshadow? Likewise, I am concerned the study area now includes the parklands and Precinct 7, East Diamond Creek Primary and Diamond Valley College. These are not part of the current activity centre zone. This may then change the whole strategic growth area for the activity centre zone. See the 400-metre distances shaded around the whole activity centre on the map. Does this shaded area indicate new housing policy for Diamond Creek? If so, this should have been made clear. This also further separates and divides Chute Street. That is Gilla's submission. The next submission is from Esther Caspi. I reserve all my rights. I strenuously object to both the current and proposed new Diamond Creek Activity Centre structure plan. Please abandon this plan so that it can be revisited after the finalisation of the interrelated housing strategy that has most recently been abandoned. The housing strategy must come first, especially with the current economic and pandemic crisis, whereby new needs and community aspirations may be desired or necessary. I believe this draft is unfair to all landowners who will be impacted by it, not just those in the activity centre who were notified. If not abandoned, please request the Minister appoint an independent panel to hear objections and suggestions that are not being incorporated, like my own. None of my objections have been incorporated. What have you done to my hometown? You have moved the goalposts so far to the east, I do not recognise it in your Diamond Creek structure plan. You have even taken my old primary school out of the study area instead, including the Diamond Creek East Primary School and Diamond Valley College. I had certainty in the well-founded future of Diamond Creek proper and the lands to its strategic north and invested accordingly. New potential investors are already showing disinterest by saying you have become the second poor cousin on the wrong side of town. Does Council realise the devastating impact the plan will have on all businesses, investors, housing and landowners on the original town centre of Chute Street? This plan effectively freezes the future of Chute Street with an unrecognisable new suburb. It is vital that Chute Street is rescued and that all policies and strategies support this. Diamond Creek Township must remain one whole town with equal attention given to both sides of the creek. Chute Street does not deserve to become a secondary retail node in any respect. And that is Esther's submission.
And then the final one is the Diamond Creek Traders Association.
The Diamond Creek Traders Association wish to provide the following feedback to Nillumbik Shire Council's Diamond Creek Draft Major Activity Centre Structure Plan. Request that a representative from the committee is part of the planning and implementation team in the rollout of the Diamond Creek Structure Plan. We feel these items are a priority for Council and Diamond Creek. Investigate implementation of indented parking on the western side of Elizabeth Street. We believe this is of utmost priority Council need to put this on the top of the budget priority list. Strengthen the landscape character along Main Hurstbridge Road through the provision of mature trees and planting within the streetscape and public realm. Investigate the opportunity for a public space plaza and the heart of the activity centre to be located adjacent to the train station north of the Main Hurstbridge Road, away from traffic congestion. We feel the following is positive in the structure plan. More connection needs to be provided across the whole Diamond Creek precinct. It is very disjointed and we need to better use the existing land to connect the area. This should be done in consultation with traders and the community. Introduce more lively activities in the activity centre, and the centre requires a generator of employment and investment. Any changes to land use, we believe, need to be done in consultation with the traders and community. For example, new opportunities for office space at ground or first floors of mixed-use development. Rezoning of precincts 3 and 5 to a commercial 3 zone, C3Z, which would provide a range of industrial, commercial, office and other employment generating uses which support the mixed use function of the area. Provide the opportunity for a transit oriented development on land to the west of the railway line, precinct 4, including uses such as commercial and residential. Encourage redevelopment at increased residential densities to provide additional dwellings within walking distance of the town centre. Develop the retail, office and entertainment activities in and around Chute Street for local convenience shopping, a range of food and other restaurant outlets and professional and other office-based services, but little if any retail floor space expansion. We support investigation into building heights and more activity in the centre, but not at the sacrifice of losing the natural feel of Diamond Creek and increased traffic congestion. Investigate the provision of additional pedestrian railway crossings to improve connectivity and legibility between the northern and southern sides of the activity centre and beyond. Investigate potential footpath upgrades and widening along Main Hurstbridge Road.
Thank you, Councillor. Clark.
Call me Carl.
Carl. I forgot who you were then. Right, so they're the end of our submissions.
May I just say, Mayor, that's not the full submission, but councillors will have that.
Thank you. Is there much more after that?
Yes.
Right. All right, could I please have a mover for the recommendations? Councillor Perkins.
It's not strictly the recommendation, it's my motion that I'll put though.
Yep.
And it's very, very similar. That the committee acting under delegation of council notes, 1, the submissions received in response to the community consultation on the draft Diamond Major Activity Centre Structure Plan, and the report would be presented to the August Ordinary Council meeting. So it's a change July to August, which will recommend changes to the draft Diamond Creek Major Activity Centre Structure Plan. And just a third dot line, and look, I've taken on advice where it needs to be part of the motion, but my intent is that along the lines of what Rose has said, I'd still like to see the draft made available prior to the July OCM to enable ward councillors to undertake targeted community consultation with the submitters. So I can read that out. A new draft will be made available to council prior to the July OCM to enable councillors to undertake targeted community consultation with submitters.
Can you just move that over, Cartiers? Because on my screen it's chopped off. Or is that just me? Okay, I can read it up there. All right, do you have a seconder for that, Councillor Perkins?
I can't see anyone.
Yeah, Councillor Demeric, I can see. That's why I had to move down. All right, over to you, Councillor Perkins.
All right, thank you. So, you know, it's a slightly different tact. It failed in the previous draft. Sorry?
Second point, Peter, did you need to repeat so the draft comes out prior to the July or the August OCM?
The draft comes out prior to the July.
Oh, July, thank you.
Yep.
I can't read the words either. I was just trying to understand them. So
yeah, so the report for decision comes out in August.
Access to the report in July.
Can you just bring it back up, Cartier? Sorry. The councillors. One moment, councillors, and we'll get it back on the screen.
So I want this draft, which is, you know, we've heard it's just about ready to go. So I want to be able to, you know, have a discussion with submitters and see what they think, you know, so I can really truly inform my decision on for the August council meeting.
So my question, Mayor, is shouldn't it really be that if there's a new draft to be made available in July OCM, that the document be made available to the community, not just councillors? Why are we so special that we're going to control?
Oh no, you can. Yeah, I'm happy to change that word to community
and council.
Just change it to a date. It doesn't just by the what is it, the 31st? No.
When's the July OCM? The July OCM is the 28th.
Yeah, well, if you had it by the Thursday night before, it's effectively keeping the timeframes that officers said they're very comfortable with at the moment and what they've been planning on. So I don't want to make any changes to the officers' timelines. But what I do want is to give the community more than, you know, the Thursday night or, you know, the Friday night, the Saturday and the Sunday to see the changes that we've made to the document. So that's effectively, you know, I don't want to have to make a decision on the document until the August meeting, but still keeping.
Able to do that.
My question, Council, Mayor, again, just on this resolution, which I've got to say I'm missing some of the words, but I would have thought if we're going to put it out for community consultation, we want to have a process which enables us to be able to hear the community consultation. So
well,
then it would come to the August FNC so we could hear submissions. That's what he wants to do.
Yes, you can't. You do need a process, Councillor Perkins. How do you propose to do that, or are you just going to do it yourself?
Well, I was going to do it myself, but if you know, we can do it either way. But I just want more time than the weekend to be able to talk with community on the new draft. You know, like I haven't seen it yet. We've seen some versions of it, and we, you know, as we get it on the Thursday night, and I've got to try to catch up with 36 submitters and see how what they think of the changes to the document.
I just want to check with. I'm presuming that's okay with Rosa, but I'd just like to get her to. I'd just like to hear her say that, if we can get her on the call.
I just want to be able to close the loop. You know. You know,
yeah,
so
I get where you're going.
What I'm seeing the resolution saying is we're going to have changes sent to us in August, but we're going to see we're going to have a draft available in July, OCM, and then we need a process to somewhere in the middle.
So Rosa, we'll put the words back up on the screen, or can you see them? Are you following what's been proposed?
Yes, I am.
Right. So I just would like some comments from you about the feasibility of that.
So currently officers are working to with the consultant to make the various changes. We're hoping to have the changes back by the 20th of July.
So do you need more than 8 days, Councillor Perkins? So that's more than 2 days.
The 20th of July?
Yes, we're hoping to have it back by the 20th of July, provided a consultant doesn't delay.
And what's the date of the OCM?
28th, so that gives you 8 days.
Well, we only see it on the Thursday night. So, you know, the community sees the document on the Thursday night. They're expected to, you know, in that magical 3 days to read, comprehend the document, see what the changes are, and then lobby me on whether or not they think the changes are appropriate and they're happy with the document. Like, I want some time as the ward councillor to be able to speak to the people who made the effort to submit.
What Councillor Perkins is saying then is that he wants the document to be available by the July OCM. Rosa is confirming that.
Yeah, that's possible.
What the resolution needs to say then is that that document is then going to be available on the council's website for further public input by a certain date, picked by the FNC, then got to pick a date so that the officers know they've got a cut-off date, and they can prepare their further report for August. You've got to have a...
So what do you want your cut-off date to be between you and Rosa?
Well, it doesn't matter, but effectively, I just want to be able to get the draft document, the one that the officers are proposing to go to the OCM with. I want to be able to, you know, talk to people about it. Like at the moment,
you'll get it on the 25th, I think, or 24th, whatever the Thursday is.
That's right.
And so then, is that sufficient? That covers off this?
Well, the motion sort of says that we won't make a decision on it until the August meeting.
All right.
So that gives me time to speak to people. Whether or not
as long as that's
officers want to undertake some broader community consultation, you know, that's not what I'm asking for. I just want to be able to talk to people with that document.
I just wanted to clarify that will fit it in with what our meeting schedule was. So continue with your argument, Councillor.
Don't the officers need to know when the community consultation, further consultation concludes, so that they then know that on that basis they're writing a report for the August OCM?
They're writing a report for the July. They're still writing. They're still keeping to their current timeframes, which have their report ready for you know, for the July OCM. You know, hand it over. Give us a look at it. Give me a chance, a few weeks to talk with community about it, and then we'll be able to decide whether or not you know, that document is acceptable, or you know, we need to do something else. But you know, trying to turn this around in 3 days is just.
I'm not debating against you. My point is, I'm just asking a question in the resolution of either you're going to report back to officers at some point so they know what they're going to say to us in August.
How to adjust the report.
Or you're going to produce your own report to tell the council what it is you found out uniquely in that 1 month. And you're going to move amendments on the night. I'm just, you know, at the moment, it's all over the place.
No, it's not. At the moment, it's quite clear. We get it.
Clear as mud.
It is not.
All right. I'm glad you know what you're voting on.
You get the report as set out by the officers. You then have time to look through the report, actually think about it, and then go back to the meeting informed and making what amendments are necessary. Not just try and rush it through, ignore community and badmouth them, and then just push it through and go, here, cop that.
I think the point Councillor Clark was trying to make was there might be a whole range of issues that needed changing, which is out of the parameter of councillors to actually write the report, and the staff have to do it.
That is not part of that's not part of this process. This is just slowing it down, get the report, look at it, think about it, and then go on with the process as per normal.
But it's got to get to the staff at some stage to make the required changes.
Well, it doesn't. It gets to the staff at the August OCM, and if all we're doing is extending that period, that the community can actually see the draft report. We're extending from 3 days to 33 days.
Excuse me, Councillor Perkins. Governance is also saying that it's not an appropriate amendment. You need to clarify point 3.
Governance is shaking her head at the moment, so I just want to know what governance is actually saying. Can't hear you, Blogger.
Take your earphones out. Remember we had that issue? Can you hear her now?
No.
Hang on. Can you hear her now? Talk.
Nope.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'll have to mute
Thank you.
mine.
So I'm just wanting to clarify.
Okay. Feedback.
Where's the volume on this? So I've got a staff's computer. Yep.
I just wanted to point.
That might be Gilla.
Can you?
No, you've got to get the sound off it.
Sounded like Gilla to me.
At what point do we say something about Councillor Clark being rude to residents?
There's nothing rude about that, Councillor Jimrick. Didn't sound like it to me.
Sorry. Through the chair, I just wanted to point out point 3. From my perspective, it states that officers are to return a draft to council before prior to the OCM, the July OCM. It's not clear in what manner. So, do we want a report to council? Do we want an emailed version of the draft to council to allow further comments? Do we want to put it on participate Nillumbik for further ability for a 2-week period for the community, or just the submitters to provide further comment? I just think if we can tighten up point 3, I'm comfortable with what's intended. We just need to tighten it up to really give a better direction to officers about what you want to achieve. That's all.
Councillor Perkins?
Well, you know, I'd be comfortable with it. You know, a draft will be, you know, put up on the council website. You know, at the same time that the Eltham. So the Eltham draft is going to be put up on the Thursday night or the Friday afternoon.
Can you bring up the motion again, please, Cody?
So because we spent so much time making sure we didn't want to affect the officers' timelines. That's not what I want to do here. What I want is at the same time that this report was always going to be ready and that the draft was going to be ready. So at the same time, when you put the agenda up for the July OCM with the Eltham draft, I would like you to put the Diamond Creek draft up on the website. It's not going to be an agenda item for the July OCM, but I want it to be put on the website so the public have got access to it. And really that's all. I want them to be able to see what the changes that officers and councillors have made to the original version as a result of submissions. And I want to be able to close that loop to go and have a chat with the submitters and see if it's got any better.
Just give staff a moment and they will sort that.
Just maybe a suggestion, for Councillor Perkins and maybe for governance. If we just omitted to undertake targeted community consultation with submitters. I mean, I think all Councillor Perkins is looking for is the new draft that will be made prior to the July OCM to be available, and then we'll kick it around in August. I mean, Councillor Clark has said that we can do anything what we like with the report in July. We can amend it, we can throw it out, we can do anything. I don't see there's any difference as here. We're just saying that the report for Diamond Creek's available prior to July, just like Eltham, and that's it. We don't, then we'll do what we need to do in August. We don't need to undertake targeted community consultation. I think that if we get rid of that, that takes care of all the governance kind of issues that have just been raised. What we need to do is just do up to the July OCM.
Councillor Perkins, would you read out what you want based on what you want?
I think Councillor Brooker makes a good point. I'm happy to amend it to a new draft will made available on the council's website prior to the July OCM. You know, at the same time that the draft to the Eltham Activity Centre Structure Plan goes out.
All right, you got that?
So it's the Thursday prior to the July OCM.
Yeah. I don't want to create any more work for, you know, our staff who have got these timelines that, you know, they need to, you know, work to. So I'm not saying don't do any less work. Still have the draft available.
Councillor Perkins, I've got governance suggesting we just put the date in. Are you happy with that, the 24th?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Just one moment. So just hold a second. So does that satisfy you?
Yes.
All right.
All right. So I can speak now?
Correct.
All right. So what this motion does really is just give us a little bit more time to close that loop. You know, I think we have to be respectful of submitters, of the people who have made written submitters and spoken to us tonight. Couldn't really get it across the line for the Eltham, so hopefully at least one more councillor might consider there is value in closing a loop. You know, when community make the effort to put in written and then verbal submissions to council, they actually deserve the respect of us being able to go back to them and say, look, this is what that council and the officers have done with the draft. This is how we've addressed your concerns. You know, does it satisfy you? Is this better? Because, you know, we don't really get a sense of that. The timeframes are too narrow. By the time the public see, you know, the new document on the Friday, I think it's they see it on the Friday. We see it on the Thursday night. You know, before they know it, it's Tuesday and it's got away from them. I think this is such an important document that I really do need to be reassured from the community that we've got it right. You know, so I had things in you know, the Diamond Creek Major Activity Centre Structure Plan because it was you know, it was encouraging an increase in density, is encouraging more built form. What I felt that we needed to do was try to provide some infrastructure that goes to support that. And the elephant in the room in Diamond Creek is the train line and the road congestion that we get as a result of level crossings. So that's why, you know, I was at pains to put in the only feasible outcome. If you want to increase housing density in the activity centre, you actually have to sort out the level crossing. So that's how it became the Sky Rail, because it's next to flood-prone land subject to inundation, and it's just not viable to go down. You know, I compare. You know, I'd like to keep Diamond Creek the way it is. I think that's generally what most people in Diamond Creek want. That's what our ratepayers want. They want to preserve their town. They're not looking for you know, this thing that the planners seem to push, and apparently the state government push is an increase in built form, an increase in intensity. Because it's called an activity centre, we have to, you know, continually try to grow it. That's not what the people in Diamond Creek generally want. You know, they would like to see a reduction in traffic movements. They'd like to see upgrades to roads, upgrades to critical infrastructure, and that really has to be done before you increase intensity in terms of the built form and putting an extra 300 people in the or 300 dwellings in the activity centre. So that was why the Sky Rail was in there. It was broadly wasn't supported at all from the community because they didn't want the Sky Rail, and further than that, they didn't want any increase in the built form. They don't like the idea of the 5-storey buildings. They don't like the idea of the natural environment being pushed aside. Loss of canopy trees, you know, not a plan really to increase canopy trees. So So these are the things that I need to have more conversations with submitters. They're the ones who have made the effort to put in written submissions and to submit tonight. And I think broadly, into future processes, this is what we should be trying to do. We should be trying to give, officers and even the ward councillors. In this case, it's just me. I want that chance to be able to try to close that loop and go back to the submitted and say, look, I acknowledge that you made some good points in your submission. You're probably not going to get all of what you wanted, but this is how far we've gone. What do you think of it? And hopefully it's enough. Hopefully we can get people that are broadly supportive of the plan. If they're not, as an elected representative, I don't know where to go. But I need to have that conversation. I need to sort of try to. I think Councillor Jumerick sort of said, we've got a plan for the people that live in Nillumbik now. They're just as important as the imaginary people that might come and live here into the future. I see that Diamond Creek and Eltham are very, very similar in terms of what the Eltham community want for their activity centre. Is very, very similar to what the people in Diamond Creek want. We have helped each other out in the past, the Eltham and Diamond Creek communities, and I think what the Eltham Community Centre is saying about the Eltham structure plan is just as relevant for the Diamond Creek structure plan. So I hope this motion gets supported.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Jumerick.
Sorry, Mayor, can I just make a recommendation that we extend the meeting? It's now.
Oh, sorry, I was reminded about that. Thank you very much, Councillor Rankin. So you're moving that we extend the meeting?
Happy to move that.
Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Brooker. All those in favour? And that is carried. Thank you. Councillor Jumerick.
Thank you. I'm unmuted, aren't I? Fully agree with Councillor Perkins. I think it's important in these things that we don't rush them through, that we actually see the document rather than just get it on the Thursday, even if it's just for spelling mistakes. It just needs time to read through it. So I think fully support it. I commend him for and can see why he's been our longest serving councillor. He obviously considers his ward and the people within it, and he's taking all steps and due diligence to make sure that happens. So commend him for his effort, and we'll be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Jumerick, for those lovely sentiments. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Ashton.
I'll be supporting the amendment, but not because about closing the loop or further engagement. I actually think that the submissions made by the 40 odd people in Diamond Creek brought up a lot of issues around Diamond Creek, and I believe that a lot of those issues could create tensions within the community. I don't think they're going to be easy to resolve, and I look forward to giving Councillor Perkins the opportunity of working with all those people to try and work out how Diamond Creek is going to move on into the future. I do note that the maximum building height of 3 to 5 metres has been available since 2014. And I think we need to remind the community that it's not council that actually decides what occurs there. We can put a framework in place, but it's to do with demand, and it's to do with developers wanting to come to a particular area to do things. We could have 7 stories, but nobody's going to take us up on that. And so it's about, when we talk about stimulating an economy and trying to get people to come there are things that we can do. And I think the fragmentation of Diamond Creek has always been one of the biggest issues. I think there's probably a lot of work to do with Diamond Creek. The submissions were really good. It's very complex issues there. You're not going to have a massive population increase, so I doubt that we're going to have massive development there. But there are a lot of things there that could be done a lot better. With potentially a town square would be great, a community centre. I think there's a lot of things that people of Diamond Creek have waited for a long while, And this might be an opportunity for us as a council to help Councillor Perkins actually achieve some of those things.
Thank you, Councillor Ashton. I have to agree. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Clark.
I have no problem with the resolution, and I'm happy to support it. But I'll make a couple of comments. Firstly, I found the public consultation process a bit fascinating tonight. It's the only night that I've seen Gillis, Snap and Ethra Caspi on the same side as Sue Dyatt. I suspect it'll be the only issue they ever all agree on. And, you know, I find it remarkable that Councillor Perkins holds out Ms Duffy as an advisor on...
Councillor Clark, can we not talk about residents, please? It really isn't appropriate. Sorry.
Well, it is, because the residents want to make a submission. So let me hear what I'm going to say before we start to be sensitive.
We went there last time and we were shocked.
Yes.
Go ahead, Councillor Clark, and if I think it's indelicate, I will stop you.
It will never be indelicate. It'll be typical of my very considered commentary.
That's what worries me.
Yeah, well,
I'm worried too.
The reality is the reality, but seeing as you're using up my time, I'll stop the clock. My point is, we got a considered comment from Ms Duffy. She was the only person who actually made a personal submission. Doesn't reside in Diamond Creek, but that's fine. She's got a continued interest in Diamond Creek. And without even waiting to hear what the community said, in the briefings, Councillor Perkins ruled out her one submission, her one idea, her great idea of a sky rail. It was abolished. She didn't even get to put it before he'd already rubbed it out in a private meeting. Now, that's not good public consultation, and I agree with Ms Duffy with respect to that matter. You've got to listen to what everybody says. And so it is unfair that, you know, and I actually think sky rail's not a bad idea for Diamond Creek, because you can't go below ground. As much as Councillor Perkins wants to hide that issue, the reality is it sits on a floodplain. You're never going to be able to get to dig a tunnel. So that is the reality if you're going to overcome the problem of the traffic problem and the railway crossing in Diamond Creek. The other point I just want to make is Councillor Perkins talks about the nature of how he wants to consult with the community. I've got news for him. 90% of the submitters say they don't want anything over 2 stories. He's been there a decade. He was there when the last plan came in at 4 to 5 stories. So I wasn't. What you're going to see is a change.
I've only been here 10 years. Only 10. Only 1 decade.
My count, but anyway. What you're going to do to change the document and to walk away from the current plan that it is now. Because broadly, this document doesn't change dramatically what the current circumstances are, again, with the exception of it has the idea of trying to put in a transport hub, a sky rail, to overcome the major problem in the activity centre. So I look forward to the further community consultation. I encourage those that really want to fix this problem, which is the major problem of Diamond Creek, of the transport hub, to really consult hard on what is the outcome that they do want, and so that we can make that submission. I'm happy to have the time, but there's a fair bit of work to be done if you're going to rewrite the whole document, because that seems to me, if you're saying is we're only going to listen to the people who say what happens in these 40 submissions and we're going to amend it to do that, then you're throwing out the current plan.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Any other councillors wish to speak? Nobody else wishes to speak? If not, I'm just waiting for the delay that Councillor Perkins puts his hand up again. All right, no right of replies. Nobody's objected to you, so we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that is unanimous, and that is carried. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. We have no other business. No confidential, so I'll call the meeting to a close. It is 23 minutes to 11. Thank you very much to those online who've suffered through our technical issues, etc. tonight. And hopefully everybody's staying safe and looking after themselves. Thank you all to the staff again tonight for all your input, and again for those who've stayed the course tonight and stayed late. Please stay safe, look after your families, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks very much.
Is there anyone still
everybody.
watching? Anyone still watching?
33 people.
Oh.
So good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Hang on a moment.